Greetings, everyone, and welcome to an especially heart-pounding celebrity edition of Monster Party.
Monster Party! Monster Party! This is going to be epic.
Yes.
Oh, it is.
Epic.
A new high that just surpassed our past high.
I'm high already.
Yes.
Aren't you?
Yeah.
And who are you, sir?
I'm Matt Weinhold.
I am SHAWN SHERIDAN.
I'm Larry Stroth.
And I'm James GONIS.
And our topic for this show,
It's big.
it's so big because it's also
Out of
our
this world.
guest.
Yes, it is.
It's our guest. Now, I could list this man's credits, but oh my God, that would be a whole nother podcast in and of itself. I think I can just explain it by simply saying our topic is Walter Koenig.
Walter Koenig! Yeah.
Hooray.
Thank you so much.
Delighted to be here, are you?
Yes, yes, I am indeed. I've heard nothing but what's the word? I can't.
We get that a lot.
Forget about it.
We get that a lot, yeah. Well, thanks for making it.
Yeah.
Thanks for...
You come highly recommended by my son-in-law, Jimmy Pardo.
He
All right,
is
there
a
you go.
dream.
Yeah,
that guy.
he's okay.
I love that man. And your daughter.
Absolutely. My daughter, Danielle Koenig, Pardo, but she goes by Danielle Koenig.
Yes, she
And
would.
my extraordinary, absolutely magnificent, delightful, and absolutely the proudest thing in my life, my grandson, Oliver.
Yeah.
He recommended us.
He's great.
I want to get him on the show. Seriously. Like, I think we have a lot in common, I think.
Yeah?
Because he loves the superheroes. And,
Oh, yeah, he does indeed.
Yeah.
In fact, the first time he saw Star Trek, we can talk about Star Trek. It's not verboten.
Wait a minute. What is your connection? What is your connection to Star Trek?
You're talking about classic Star Trek, right?
Well, how do you define classic?
It's what you were in. That's
Yes.
classic.
But that was the same one that Bill... Oh, never mind.
Oh, no. Don't just gloss over that.
You know, we'll get there. But I want him to tell a story. Oliver and Star Trek, please.
Yeah, he's watching... the first episode he watched, he was 6 years old. He was watching an episode called Trouble with Tribbles.
One of the best.
And there's the big fight scene where we're fighting the Klingons.
Yep.
And he's watching it, and he says, I can't believe my grandfather is that table-hopping maniac.
You were hopping the tables pretty good in that scene.
Yeah, very spry.
And isn't there a moment when you're trying to hit a Klingon in the stomach and he
Yeah.
doesn't really do anything and he grabs you and he throws you? It looks like you're smiling.
Really?
Yeah.
I wasn't supposed to. That might have been the stunt double.
No. It was you, sir. It was
Classic.
you.
It looked like they
Classic
let you
scene.
do a good amount of that
I did
stunt work.
a little bit in that show. I didn't
Yeah.
have that much to do through the series. You know, mostly I pressed buttons, and although it was cramping,
You're a hero in your own right.
I did
Yeah.
do those. I did push the buttons.
To people with carpal tunnel syndrome, you have showed us the way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was poster boy for that.
Okay. Well, look for listeners who don't know, Walter, you played the character Chekov in classic Star Trek in season 2 and season 3.
Correct.
And you were not in season 1.
That's true. That's true.
And I was trying to figure out, I've heard a couple different stories about why Chekov was created.
Yeah.
And I wanted to see if I can get the skinny, if I could get the truth from you, sir.
Can you handle the truth?
You know what? Yes, I can. Even if I don't like it. I've heard two different things.
That's not the way
Tom Cruise. Yeah,
that's not the way Tom Cruise would have read it.
But you know
No.
what? I'm not Tom Cruise, okay?
No, you are
I'm-
not, sir.
No. Okay, see, there you go again, being so mean.
I've watched Tom Cruise, and you are not Tom Cruise.
Okay,
sir.
okay, so we made it very clear I'm not Tom Cruise. But I want to get back to your point.
Okay.
Can you tell me the truth? I heard a story about how some Russian newspaper reviewer in Russia saw Star Trek and was upset that here's this story about the future and there's no Russians in it. And they were pissed off. And then I've heard another story. It's like, no. It's really because the monkeys had come on in 65, 66, same year as Star Trek. And they wanted to put somebody younger in
They
there.
wanted a heartthrob.
So yes, a heartthrob. So can you tell me, sir? Can you tell me?
I can.
Oh,
The truth of the matter is, monkeys had nothing to do with it. Absolutely nothing. No. The Soviet Union, the Union of Socialist Soviet Republics, USSR, was threatening to drop a second Iron Curtain if we did not bring a Russian character aboard Star Trek. They were going to double the boundaries between us. They were going to block us further from that part of the world. And they came to me. It was several people whose names I cannot mention because they were with the government. They no longer are. But came to my house and asked me if I had an objection to representing a Russian who would be in the future, not at the present time, and portray him in a warm, cuddly light. Cuddly, I think, was the word that they used. And I signed an agreement that I would not play any other cuddly Russians. Guys, you got to stop me. Come on.
Wait a minute. Are you full of shit here?
Yes.
It sounded good, though.
Walter, keep going.
No.
Keep going. I like this.
Walter.
Because I think eventually...
What did you put in his drink?
No.
What did you put in his drink? Did you put anything in his drink?
I think if he kept going, it would eventually lead to Mike Flynn. I think it would definitely, yeah.
Okay, this is great. See, so now all these listeners go, oh my gosh.
I hope so.
No, that's
fake news.
Walter, great. Walter, we want to know.
Alternate.
Yeah. No, in the mirror
This is the
universe.
mirror
Okay.
Walter
So
Koenig.
this is the evil Pavel Chekov. Is that what
This is the mutinous Pavel Chekov.
Can you be evil and cuddly?
Okay,
I think so.
That's just great. Okay, all right. So
Yeah, so it was all about the monkeys. It was. It was all the monkeys. They wanted somebody for that demographic. They didn't have anybody they felt. I mean, Captain Kirk was the love interest for most females, but not the 6 to 9 year olds.
right.
Okay, whoa. What?
Wait, they put you in for the 6 to
Wow,
9?
you heard it here, folks.
Yeah, I bet you don't hear that at any convention, huh?
Wow.
Yeah.
Great. Wow.
Go
okay.
ahead, the 6 and 9 year olds. Go ahead.
And they
Who did they cast for like the 2 to 3 year olds? That's what I want to know.
Will you let the man talk?
Yes.
Let the man talk, please, Walter. 6 to 9 year olds.
Yes, 6 to 9. Well, 6 to 10 year olds because they were sending me correspondence on line, paper, and pencil.
Okay.
And it was mostly about mostly about how groovy my hair was,
It was
Right.
groovy.
which
It
wasn't
was.
actually my hair.
Right,
you
for
know.
the first few episodes.
Okay, I wanted to ask you about that hair.
Oh God, yes.
I mean, here's the thing that gets me is, I know that the first episode that we see you in that was
Mock
aired.
Time.
Yeah. Now his hair is okay.
No, I don't think it was mock time.
No.
The first one aired.
The first one aired.
The second season.
But the first.
No.
No?
Cat's paw.
Cat's paw. No, he's right. He's
Okay.
cat's paw. Yeah, he knows what he's talking about. That's Walter Koenig. Okay.
Jesus, Sean.
Yeah, good going. But it's like,
Do you want him to leave?
No.
'Cause-
Hey, can I talk? Your hair was okay, but that wasn't the first one that you shot. And one of the first ones that you shot, your hair was kind of funky. It was like
It was a woman's wig. It was a woman's wig.
a woman's wig.
Right.
Yeah,
So that's why I was attracted to you.
Yeah. I'm blushing so much.
So they put on a woman's wig to try to make you have that kind of hippie mop
Your
top.
hair just wasn't that
Well,
long yet.
I had just finished an independent film that I produced, very, very low budget film, and my hair was short. And although it started to thin, it was still, if it hadn't been that short, I could still gotten away with it. But because it was so short, they brought me up to, what's that makeup place on Hollywood Boulevard?
Oh, Max Factor?
Yes, Mass Fact.
Yeah.
And we picked out 5 or 6 different wigs, and we brought them back, and I tried them on, and then so help me, the people in the room all tried them on, and I kept thinking, if I don't get cast, boy, do I have something on these guys. And at that point, transvesticism was not as
Accepted.
accepted as
Right.
it is.
Sure.
Right. So anyway, So they tried on a blonde wig and a red-haired wig, and they finally decided the one that I wore. And I wore it for about 6 episodes, and then my hair grew out enough so that they could spray in the back where it was thinning with Nestle's Streaks and Tips, it was called.
No.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sounds delicious.
Yeah.
I still have that for breakfast, actually.
Yeah, but it was a very funny feeling having somebody's tongue on the top of your head.
I'll be the judge of that.
Okay, so they sprayed stuff on your hair, and then in some of the fight scenes, did you have to be careful about that? Do you know
No,
that?
because it was still no, because I didn't have that many fight scenes. Bill had a couple of fight scees.
They had to
And
be careful with his hair.
Well, yeah, and as a matter of fact, there was one scene where he looked strikingly like Hedy Lamarr because 90% of it had come off and was hanging over one eye. Yeah, I've never told that story.
Oh, God bless you.
Yeah. But he handled it very well.
Yeah?
You got to give him credit for what he
sure.
did.
Oh, totally. We have
No, don't totally.
No,
Don't give me totally.
well,
I don't want to hear that. I can say it, but nobody else can.
Walter, do you remember which episode that was, by any chance?
No, it was a fight. He had a fight, and it came off almost entirely. He was hanging by one tape, and he just left the set and then went ahead and got it repaired.
Yeah.
You know?
I guess when that happens, you just kind of got to go with it and
Yeah,
roll
and
with
nobody
it.
said anything.
Yeah.
God forbid if anybody said anything.
well, you know, we've heard. I've heard from certain people about how Bill was very concerned about his hair.
Okay, well, I was the new kid on the block, so I was not totally aware of things that were happening.
Sure.
Most of them happened behind closed doors in any case. But, I heard second and third party that there were issues, and there were issues between Leonard and Bill at that point.
Right.
They became
Right.
fast friends for a while, not the whole time.
Right.
But for a while, they became fast friends, and but during the 2 seasons, they were competitive about who had what part and how many lines they had.
Right.
That kind of thing did happen.
So how was it coming into to a second season of a show where, like you said,
It had established people already.
You know,
Yeah.
there are
You're
was
the-
this kind of camaraderie.
you're the new
with-
guy.
Yeah. I mean,
You don't think in those terms. You have to have a certain distance to be able to see the situation like that. I saw it as I was just coming to work.
Right.
Sure.
Sure.
And there were other actors who were already in the show, but that didn't have any. It didn't affect me in any way. Everybody was pleasant. That was one thing that was
Well,
nice.
that's good.
Yeah. Nichelle was particularly pleasant. She was very sweet and made me feel welcome. And Jimmy and Nichelle and DeForest, they were all great. Bill was he acknowledged me. Leonard was always Mr. Spock, so I never got to know Leonard. I only got
Really?
to know Mr. Spock. Oh yeah.
What about George? What's George?
George wasn't there. He wasn't there for the first 7 or 8 weeks.
Oh, that's right. Oh,
Okay.
he was
Doing the Green Berets.
You're right. Yeah.
But when he came back,
Well, he came back and he said and he wrote that he hated me and that he was so angry with my. I never saw that. I mean, he carried it off very well. I mean, we shared the same dressing room, which meant nothing to me.
Right.
I mean, I was just lucky to have a weekly paycheck.
Yeah, you're happy to be working.
Yeah.
Right.
But he was really upset with that. But as I say, he was very professional. So I never felt like an outsider. I never felt like I was one of the top guys.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
I mean, there was the 3 leads. It was a different time.
Yeah.
In the 1960s, there was a real status element involved in how a show was made and how the people were presented and what way they participated. The 3 leads were the 3 leads. And I accepted that, as I say.
Yeah.
I was just pleased to be working. And then we appeared at the end of the show, our credits, in between the guest stars. I mean, we didn't even have separate cards. And I say that not out of bitterness, but just to accentuate the point that it was more than a class, it was a caste system.
yeah.
Right.
And it led to a lot of things happening on a subliminal level. I mean, I accepted that.
Right.
And I accepted that's the way it was. And I just went with it. If I had been there in the first year, I might not have felt that way. I might have felt a little more disgruntled. But certainly, as it was, I felt that, I had hitched a ride on this train, and I was glad to be on the rails,
Yeah.
or something
Right.
like that. Yeah.
Walter, had you were you familiar with the show from the first season? Had you watched any of it?
No, I had not. No, and it's, of course, what I always say, and it's true, is that I flipped the channels and I'd seen these absurd styrofoam rocks, and I said, "Well, I'm not going to watch this."
Is that really what you thought?
Because
You didn't. I mean,
that's
you're-
the exact opposite of us. We're like,
I mean,
ooh, styrofoam rocks.
I mean, yeah, I get excited, about, and you know, I thought it was otherworldly. And I didn't think of it as a styrofoam rock. It was like a different kind of rock. I still had my sense of wonder. I didn't lose it like some people, you know.
Why are you always looking at me?
No,
when
no,
you
no.
say
Well,
that?
I like that stuff, and I wanted to ask when you were cast for this, Walter, did the Russian accent, was this something that you could do accents, or is it something you create on your own, or did they say to you, hey, I need you to really sound like a Russian or something, and you kind of made it up, or how did you come by this?
I sort of made it up.
You made it up.
I remember my father. My father, he had a Russian accent.
Mm-hmm.
But my father was multilingual, 5 or 6 different languages.
wow.
So that his accent probably was blunted at the edges because he could speak so many different languages. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it's the only answer I can come up with.
Mm-hmm.
But that's where I got it from. And I heard subsequently, in fact, many years past our participation in the show, that he thought the accent, Gene Roddenberry thought the accent was really bad, but he liked my look. I didn't hear it from him, but I did hear it from other sources. So maybe that was the case.
Well, you know what, Walter? I bought it. Hook, line, and
it was-
sinker.
It really.
Well, you know,
No, I did.
you know, curious thing. I go to conventions. And people would get up and say, you know, that accent isn't real because I'm taking Russian in school and there's no W in the Russian language. You know? So what am I supposed to say to that? So after a while, I kind of got inured to it. I bristle a little and say, perhaps, well, there may have been confusion because there wasn't any W when people started speaking English and they knew that there was a W in the English language and there was a sound for it, that the V and the W got interchanged.
right.
My answer would have been, and what Star Trek show are you on?
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
the best experience I had was, so I'm at a convention and 2 young women come up to me and say, oh, Mr. Koenig, we love your accent. It's so lovely. I said, okay, you don't like the accent. You're going to school. your language teacher is... He said, what are you talking about, Mr. Chekov? This is a wonderful accent. It just sounds like my papa.
Oh, didn't you feel like a jerk, huh?
No, I loved it.
Yeah.
No, I loved it. No, they didn't say
What
papa.
happened to those 2 girls?
Yeah.
Hey, come on now. Come on.
Now, one thing that I've noticed with the Chekhov character is that you had just this amazing talent for comedy. You are very funny in that show.
Yes.
In the appropriate moments. You know, like
Right.
Tribbles, for example. There's some really great stuff in there, and not everybody had that gift for timing on that show. I mean, I think, you know, the 3 leads managed to work out, you know, their dynamic.
Yeah.
But yeah, you had some really great comedic moments, which continued on through into the movies.
Yeah, but you know, the thing that I like is not only did he, you know, he had the comedy thing, but he also, I mean, he got his groove on. He got to get kind of
did.
sexy, you
You
know,
had
and
lots of ladies.
Yeah.
And you had it all.
And then he got to be a badass. I was thinking, oh my God, he got 3 of these great things. He got to be funny, got to be the badass, and got to get it on with some ladies.
And did you see them giving you more opportunities for that, at least incrementally, as the show went on? Like, oh, he's good at this.
Well, rather than answer that question, I'd prefer that you continue because that was really interesting.
Well, Walter, it's funny. There's a moment in Who Mourns for Adonis. This is the one where it's the Greek guy says, "I am Apollo," and there's this moment. Funny,
Great actor, by the way.
he's terrific.
Yeah, he's terrific.
And look, and
Forrest.
and there's this great moment when you say to Bill or Captain Kirk, I say Chekhov says to Captain Kirk about when Captain Kirk realizes he needs to talk to this gal about what she's doing, and you said, "Perhaps if I assisted," and he goes, "How old are you?" And you go, 22, and he says, "You better let me handle it." And it was funny. That was great. That was a great little moment. And then you get in Spectre of the Gun when you're Chekhov and there's that girl that comes
Sylvia?
over. Yeah, that comes over and says, "Oh, Billy," and just starts making out with you. And then you're like, "Oh, hey, I'm just being with the natives. Hey," and it was but that's like one of several chicks that you get on with. And I'm thinking, "Oh my gosh, they're giving the young guy."
Yeah, second to Bill.
Yeah, second to
but
Bill.
I'm just saying.
But that's also in the Davy Jones style of what the Monkees was. The girls were always going after Davy.
I would say, say to you, sir, you got more ass than Spock did.
Spock.
Boom.
You mean Kirk?
No, Kirk got loads of ass. No,
okay.
but
Oh, okay, yeah.
Spock is like one of the he's one of the leads.
Right.
And
Okay.
But he was unapproachable, and that was part of the sexiness of
Right.
Spock.
Right. True.
So they only had him, I think, on the Paradise Island thing, or whatever it was.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But
And
no,
then, of
thank
course,
you.
amok time. But he had to then.
Yeah. 7 years.
Yeah. Don't get me started.
So I don't know what to say. That's very kind of you. I'm sure if George was here, you'd say the same things to him.
No. I'd be honest. That's just what you'll learn about me, Walter. I'll be honest.
Okay. Okay.
No.
Good. Well, I'm glad that you saw that. And a matter of fact, how did that come to be? It came to be because of the audition. The audition was, they gave me the sides, and it was this young ensign, and he reports to the captain.
Right.
He says,
Right.
"Captain, the ship is about to blow up. What are we going to do?" and I thought, well, there's only one way to read this. You know,
Right.
I mean, it's a young ensign. He's a little, he's a little wet behind the ears.
Yeah.
He's trying to soldier on and have the proper fortitude and all of that stuff. But he's scared, and so I read it like that. I read it, and my brow was furrowed, and my teeth were clenched, and I was wringing my hands. Well, maybe not all of that, but I did it that way, and I swear to you, there was absolute dead silence afterwards. And I thought, God, I've knocked these people out. No, I put them asleep. I said, that's nice, Walter, but could you make him funny? Funny? How do you do that funny? How do you do that funny and still have integrity as an actor? Right. I ask you. I'd gone to 2 years of drama school to find the inner workings, the conscience, and the emotional depth of the people that I would portray as an actor. And they asked me to do prostitute my entire craft for the purpose of an audition. How frivolous and how irresponsible and unprofessional. Mm-hmm. So I did it again. And I said, Captain, guess what? The ship is about to blow up.
Still works.
That's great.
And got me the part. I swear to you. That's
Oh
how I
my
got the part.
God! Is that what happened?
That's exactly what happened.
Wow, that's cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, now, hand in hand with that, you also created something that you can only describe as the CHEKOV SCREAM, which has served you well
Yes.
across the ages.
Yes.
You get it once, then again, then again, then again. Were people writing letters like "scream more"?
It became part of the casting. and I, although I never spoke to anybody about it, I always enjoyed those moments because it meant that I had something to do in the episode.
Yeah.
I wasn't just saying, Captain, warp factor 3.
Yeah.
Well,
So the idea was, I'm quite sure, they want to show jeopardy. They want to show that we were in a dangerous situation. And it would be unbecoming for Dr. McCoy to scream,
Oh yes.
or even Scotty. It would the youngest person, presumably the youngest person, would be the most vulnerable to having that reaction.
Right.
So that's why they gave it to me once, they gave it to me twice, they gave it to me several times.
Well, one of the first times we see it, and all its glory, though, is Mirror, Mirror, where it's the evil Chekhov who's mutinous, and they have a special agony booth just for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's probably the
Did
first
they write
time
that
we
around
saw
you?
They did. And that was actually one of the sexiest moments I ever had on television.
Really?
No.
Sexiest moments? No.
I will yes and you all the way.
You're kidding. That wasn't sexy to be put in that booth and.
Well, it's how he does it.
Well, yeah. Well,
Well, let's take a vote. What do you think, guys?
Sexy.
Yeah. Okay.
You know what?
Long enough.
On a scale of 1 to 10, 12.
Okay, well, just really, just bear with me here because we've got you here, and I figured.
Well, we're not moving on from the Scream thing.
No.
Because here's the thing: is that when it comes to your Scream, and when I would see, like Bill, when something would hurt him,
You mean Captain Kirk?
Captain Kirk, he would do his thing like, he'd do his way he would show
pretty
pain.
good.
Thank you very much. I've been working on it for years, 3 years of drama school. But when you would scream, I would think, wow, that really hurt. That must have really hurt.
You believe it, don't
I
you?
believe
You know what? I totally agree with you. When you are in that agonizing booth and you're doing your yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That is intense.
That might be the nicest thing anybody has ever said to me.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
No, Walter, you think, maybe we're full of crap, but no, we're being
you're full of
serious.
crap.
No, Walter, no. This really meant a lot. I mean, we believe that you were in pain and you were screaming and we felt for you.
There's also some great psychological conflict for you too, though. Like when Day of the Dove, when the alien presence has made you think that the Klingons killed your brother when you didn't even have a brother.
That's right.
Or
No, that's very good. Stop there for a second. Because Chekhov did have a brother. Yes. I decided years after the fact. In fact, when we were shooting a low-budget film, a Kickstarter film called Star Trek Renegades.
Yes.
Sure. We've seen it.
Which we'll talk about. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, you haven't seen the second.
No, not the second one.
The second, and that's, I said I would come back under certain conditions. And I was driving along one day. I said, Chekhov did have a brother. I was taking off on the idea that Khan came back, from the television series.
Yeah.
And that why couldn't we bend history a little bit and say that Chekhov had a brother and he's repressed the knowledge of that all these years.
Oh.
okay.
And that the circumstances that we're in the Renegade Part 2 movie, it keeps flashing in his head about his brother because of what happened to him. And that works in with the story. So it brings a certain tension and stress to Chekhov because of the current circumstances, because he's flashing back on his brother.
It could still then be consistent with Day of the Dove because that alien presence brought that out of you.
Yeah,
Even though everybody
though
else
you were
thought...
trying to
Sulu
Sulu
says,
kinda-
but
yeah.
Chekhov doesn't have a brother. And I thought, why is he? And it makes sense.
Yeah.
It was
They
repressed.
They pulled that from your mind.
Yeah.
That's kinda
That's
cool.
very
And you know who played Chekhov as a little kid?
Who?
My grandson,
Hey!
Oliver Pardo.
Now we have to get him on that.
So I wanted to ask you, were there, to your knowledge, in the second or third season, were there any scenes or storylines that were intended to involve Chekhov that ended up not coming to fruition for whatever reason?
Well, I don't think so. Well, actually, there's a series of 3 books, 3 volumes called These Are the Voyages. And each volume covers a season of the show, season 1, 2, and 3. And there is some insight into what happened. There's a lot of insight into what happened behind the scenes. And I don't remember what the content was, but there were a couple of episodes at least, where Chekhov would have been more involved, if not for some reason. And it wasn't necessarily by design. It might have been economic. They couldn't do those scenes with him. I think there were a couple of times, but it wouldn't have made a great deal of difference in the long run. I was pretty much destined to be the guy that said, aye, Captain, I left the show in the 3rd season. I left for a month to do a play.
No.
Yeah, and they didn't stop me. Nobody said, anything but don't let the door hit you on the way out. I did come back. I did a play in Chicago, just outside Chicago. Do you remember an actor named Jackie Coogan?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
He played with Charlie Chaplin. He played the
That's
kid.
right.
He was
He's the
Uncle,
kid.
Uncle
He's
Fester.
Uncle Fester.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
Adam's family.
Well, he and I were the guest actors.
No.
Yeah, it was great. It was a terrific month. I had such fun. I missed a couple of episodes. They asked me if I could come back early, and I said, no, the run is a month. I have to be here. But it was such a delight working with him.
What was the play?
It was Make a Million? Yeah, it was a silly little comedy, but it was just delightful. He was so much fun to be around.
That's awesome.
And so you were gone. You come back, though, and you finish the rest of the season. And when it's done, and I know this has been asked a million times, but the idea that you would walk away from this job and have it resonate so long, did you feel like it was a great thing? Wow, this piece of work that I did keeps coming back and back. Or was it initially like, really? Star Trek again?
Well, I know I know that you're joking, and I'm not taking offense. Believe me, I'm not taking offense. I had a, and I don't want you to think this is spooky or anything like that, but I had a vision that the show would perpetuate, that would go on and on and on. And at that time, I took out life insurance on myself. Which was it was pittance at the time. It was like $300 a month. It's now worth well over $2 million.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So I can die at any time and make sure that my wife is provided for.
All right. That's great.
You were really thinking ahead.
I was thinking ahead.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I was also lying.
Did you at least market Chekhov wigs? Because that could have been something, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
And it's still not too late.
Yeah, you're right.
Well, getting back to wigs, and I just want to ask one thing.
Speaking of wigs,
no,
Walter.
because he's here. Okay, so I want to go back to, there's another classic episode. Maybe you can help me out here. Okay, so the Gamesters of Triskelion.
Triskelion.
Okay, so here we have this great episode. It's Chekhov and Captain Kirk and Uhura. Oh man, I wanted to see her fight, and Bill gets his shirt. He does most of the show, with his shirt off. Why didn't your shirt come off? Why didn't they get you like sexy and slather you up and stuff?
Did you see the alien girl they paired me up?
I was thinking the same
And was it a girl?
Tamoon.
It was a girl, but they dubbed the man.
Yeah, it
voice.
sounded
That's what they did.
Yeah.
I've always been confused. I wasn't sure if it was a guy dressed up as a woman.
Yeah.
I did
She
not
was
know.
very gym teacherish.
I'm not going to go there.
but still, they could have like had
That
like
was
their
part. It was different alien races, and she was from whatever
Yeah.
race she was. That was the way they were.
A little more.
Whoa, no.
There's
Why
no-
doesn't his shirt come off? Like Captain Kirk's shirt is off.
Do you really think? You really think that if Captain Kirk's shirt comes off, any other male person is going to come off?
So
It's
basically,
not going to happen.
so you didn't want to show off Captain Kirk, is what you?
No, that's what they write.
Yes,
You would be showing them him up.
Exactly.
Yeah. And during that scene, did his chest hair fall off during the fighting? Because I heard that was also.
No.
That is a great episode.
That is a
Yeah,
terrific episode.
yeah.
I love that one.
Did you really have a sort of a premonition that this would go on beyond what you were
Any
doing
idea
at
at
the
all?
time? Any idea?
No.
Absolutely not.
I mean, it was just another job, another TV
It was
job,
over.
right?
Gene Roddenberry called us in the spring of 1969 and said, "Walter, it's nice working with you, and I hope we can do it again sometime, and good luck in your career." That was the end of it. And I said, "Okay, now what? What do I do with the rest of my life?" No, it was the kind of thing that just kept growing. Do you remember a comic book hero? Oh, of course, none of you would remember. It was a German airplane pilot who crashed in the jungle back in the golden age of comics.
Okay.
And he became the Heap.
I do know the Heap.
Okay.
Swamp Thing is kind of based on the Heap.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. And Star Trek's become kind of the Heap. It just keeps growing and growing and growing, and more of the vegetation adheres to it.
The vines keep growing.
And it's it's an amazing thing. And nobody knew. We started to think, maybe we have some kind of afterlife when we started going to conventions in like 1974 and 75. And we had sold out crowds, and we had police stopping the lines and firemen telling us that we couldn't have this many people congregating in one place. And there were 5,000 people in an auditorium that holds like 1,500. We thought, wow, this has an afterlife, and at least we'll get some residuals.
Yeah.
That sort of was what we thought. But then, of course, this is me. This is not necessarily anybody else. I am, by nature, somewhat cynical and on the pessimistic side. And
We're going to get along just fine.
so you're a glass half empty kind of guy.
with a hole in the bottom. So when Next Generation came out, I said, "Oh, that's it." First of all, they immediately received more money for personal appearances than we did at our highest. Well, when I say we, I'm talking about the supporting actors. They just started, at a greater fee. And I just thought, that would be it. And after a year, 2 years, I said, well, we're done. But I began to notice a curious thing, particularly as the third series came on and the fourth series, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, Enterprise, is that we began to establish a different kind of aura. It was
The original cast.
It
right.
was like an antique, and I mean that in the nicest way.
Right.
Right.
It had a patina that we had achieved, that we were still around, and that we were the first, we were the originals, all those words that are positive, and that became a part of who we were as far as the public was concerned, which, I, on the one hand, I appreciated. It was very nice to be thought of that like that. On the other hand, and I joke about a lot of stuff when I'm telling you that I felt a little uncomfortable about it, because what was I contributing? I wasn't dead, so it wasn't. They weren't eulogizing me, But what was I contributing? I wasn't working. I wasn't getting any other jobs. I wasn't establishing another career, and it felt a little strange to walk out in front of a crowd of 5,000 people who cheer you, so disproportionately for your contribution, which Bill, by the way, brought up, and he explained it in case I had ever not made it clear that was why we were there. But he was right. He was right. It was Star Trek. We were there because we were part of Star Trek, no matter how marginally we were a part of Star Trek.
Yes.
So we were embraced on that basis, far more than we deserved. And I really shouldn't say we, because the other actors, other supporting cast actors, might not feel that way. That's the way I felt.
But you also had the movies.
Yes.
The franchise continued with the feature films, which were big hits in theaters.
Yeah, and I just want to, because we're kind of jumping ahead, it's like when Star Trek ended, it was about 10 years before the movie started. So during that time, I just want to know, did you do a couple things? I mean, you did.
There was the animated series though too.
Yeah.
The Filmation animated Star Trek series,
where you wrote something.
Which you wrote an episode for.
But the thing that pisses me off about the animated series is they have all the characters and there's no Chekhov.
Yeah.
And you know what? I'm really bitter about it, and I'll tell you why. It's like not only do you have it's like, oh my gosh, you have I understand, you have Captain Kirk, Mr. Spock, okay, Dr. McCoy, okay, then you have Scotty, okay, you have Uhura, okay, Sulu, and then they put in these two other characters,
like alien
They look
characters.
stupid. And I'm like, you couldn't get Chekhov, and I thought to myself, gosh, was Walter Koenig a dick, and was he? I want more money or something, and I always wondered about that. And that's not the truth. Is
Walter?
Well, I prefer not to talk about it.
So you were a dick.
Well, that goes without saying.
no, come on.
No, what happened was, first of all, to go back a bit, I had written. What did I write? I wrote a screenplay. Yeah, when I couldn't get any work at all. I mean, when the phone didn't ring, it wasn't even a matter of getting work, of going up for things. I just didn't go up for things after the show was canceled. And I've never been really good about being aggressive and calling up my agent and saying, well, why don't you have me out there? It just wasn't me. In any case, I had written the script. It was a good script. It was optioned for a feature film a couple of times. And we were working on typewriters then,
Yeah, sure.
And I've never spelled very well, and I wasn't a very nimble typist. So I asked Susan Sackett, who was Gene's secretary, to type it for me, and I would pay her for it.
Okay.
And she recommended it for Gene to read. And after that, I don't know what the steps were, but then he asked me to write for the animated Star Trek.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, so that was one of your first produced scripts, actually.
It must have been.
It may have been. It may have been.
First cast member to ever write anything for Star Trek, though.
Yeah, actually.
Yeah. So anyway, he asked me if I would write an episode, and cloning was very, very popular at that time. We think of it as something more current,
Sure.
But back in the 70s. No, was it the 70s?
Yeah, like early 70s.
Yeah, it was in all the newspapers. So I took an idea and I made it into the giant Spock patrol that was going to patrol the universe. I don't know if I had originally decided that he was going to be giant or not. I probably did. I know people take issue with that. I did not want talking vegetables. You know?
Right.
That wasn't my
Who
idea.
does?
But this was the Infinite Vulcan, right?
Yes.
The
Vulcan,
Infinite Vulcan, and you know,
It's fun though. I like
Yeah,
it.
but
Yeah,
even though
I enjoy the
yeah,
episode.
you like it. I think calling it an animated cartoon, it's like the animation. It's really.
Well, that was Filmation.
Yeah.
Well, that's not.
I mean,
that has nothing to do with him.
That's the terrible art. Terrible art.
Yeah.
And that's what the point I'm getting to. Having written that, I think, again, I don't know the thought process because I didn't talk to him about it, but I think he said, well, Filmation is trying to insist that we only use Jimmy, DeForest, Bill, and Leonard. That was their first choice.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't afford anybody else.
Right.
And Leonard, and I love telling the story because it's a positive story, said that Nichelle and George were there at the beginning. They did the second pilot, and they helped sell this. They helped sell the series. And if they're not in it, I'm not in it.
Nice.
Yeah, that's what-
Leonard said that.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. I didn't come into the second season, so I guess the reasoning was that I wasn't responsible for it being on the air, which is true. So they finally said, well, can we at least eliminate Chekhov? And they agreed on that. And by then, Gene had already given me the job of writing an episode, and then he offered me a second episode, which I actually turned down.
No.
Yeah. I did like 10 drafts. It was
Wow.
it drove me
Yeah.
crazy. I just
Yeah.
couldn't handle
So it was notes from Filmation about the script.
No,
was it
it
Gene?
was Gene. It was Gene.
Ah, really?
Gene kept wanting things in it, and I
Really?
yeah. Anyway, it was nice of him to offer me a job, and in fact, he put me in the pilot. Just to give him his due, he put me in the pilot of that other series,
Oh, the Questor tapes.
the Questor tapes.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
too bad that didn't become a series. I like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, and you know, I didn't go to him. He offered it to me. So he did a couple of nice things for me.
That's cool.
Now, Land of the Lost was
was a
close to
a
that
year
time?
later.
A year later, and you wrote one of our favorite
Yeah,
episodes. 'cause
yes.
We're big fans of Land of the Lost.
Oh, yeah. Classic.
Yes,
Classic.
The Stranger with ENIK.
It introduces the character, the intelligent talking Sleestack ENIK, who is in later episodes too. How did you end up getting to write for that show? And was the ENIK the character that you thought up? And how did that come about?
Well, David Gerald was the editor.
Right. Okay. Right.
David Gerald had written Trouble with Tribbles. I had come in at some point. Well, I don't know. I had pitched some stories to Next Generation, which everybody liked. In fact, they said it was a matter of which one of three that I pitched they were going to accept, except Gene. Gene's had me out to lunch, and he said, "Well, Walter, I don't think we're going to use you on this." Okay, but among the people that I had pitched the story to was David Gerald and Dorothy Fontana, because they were both originally on Next Gen.
Yeah.
And so I guess he thought of me for that reason. And the idea was mine. It was my idea. I do take credit for that, if credit is actually due. And he was great, except that, I called the character Enig, E-N-E-G, which is G-E-N-E backwards. Which was my little homage to Gene.
Oh, okay.
And David said, everybody's going to get that. So we have to change his name. But other than that, I wrote what I didn't know for years and years and years and years, that the character recurred.
You didn't know this?
I did not know that it was a lot of people's one of their favorite characters, favorite episodes. No, I had no idea. But
Kind of
nice.
took the whole series into a little more of a mature direction.
Yeah,
it's
it did.
Very
Yeah.
sophisticated for children's shows back then, and it was also kind of a little bit Planet of the Apes inspired of a plot, and it was really cool.
I mean,
But
and
yeah.
as a kid, I watched that religiously. I loved that show so much, and that particular episode I remember so well because I love the look of the Sleestacks. The tall green, and this guy ENIK, he was gold.
Is this the character?
Yes,
That's
yes,
it.
yes.
Yeah, the character.
And he wore like the gold outfit.
Where can I get one of those?
We'll hook you up. We'll hook you up.
We'll hook you up, yeah.
Yeah.
But this was one that I loved, and everything was kind of treated seriously.
Well, yeah, it didn't insult the intelligence of the young viewers.
No,
it was.
It didn't
really
insult
well
the
done.
intelligence, unlike the feature film that came out much later, which we won't even discuss.
Right.
And the actor who plays it, Walker Edmonston.
Great
Yeah.
voice.
He played ENIK. So, good friend. But it's a favorite episode, I
It
think, of
is.
all of
Yeah.
ours.
It is.
And the fact that you created that character makes us
that's-
want to
that's
hug
pretty
you a little bit
awesome.
harder.
Yeah.
But is it the same thing? Like you did that, and it's like why you didn't do another one though? Because you just did that one.
Yeah,
And
I don't know
think-
if I wanted to do another.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
okay.
like the whole writing thing. I mean, it's tough. It's
But you
I
wrote
mean,
a couple
well,
of
you're
things
good at
too,
this.
Yeah.
These guys are writers, and they know it's tough,
Yeah.
and you get notes and stuff, and sometimes it can be really challenging and kind of like morally bruising.
Morally bruising.
I mean,
Wow. Wow, no,
Well,
let's not make this about you, Larry.
okay.
The thing is, the first show I did for television was it was an anthology series, Whatever Happened to the Class of '65, and it was from a book, and the book recounted what happened to the lives of the students who graduated from this school out near Santa Monica, and how extraordinary their lives were after they graduated from school. So it was a true story. But then they decided to make it into a fictional series, and there was only the producer, and I came in and I pitched the idea to the producer, and there was one time that looking young really worked in my favor, aside from my acting career, because this guy believed that I graduated from 1969. You know? I had actually graduated from high school in 1954.
Wow.
So yeah, I wrote it out. I had never written a television script before. It came in at 90 pages
Wow.
when it's supposed to be like 52.
Okay.
Right.
And so all the rewrites that I did was cutting it back,
Right.
cutting it back,
Right.
cutting it back. And I got crazy doing that. And we got down to about 56 pages, and I had done all the drafts that I was obligated to do. And he said he had one more draft. I said, I'm done. I'm not going to do it anymore. That's not very wise of me. You know, I wasn't thinking ahead. So there's a half a page in the script that he wrote. Otherwise, it's entirely my story. And it was okay. It was pretty good. But that's the first thing I sold. And then the girl who played the lead in that had her own series called Family.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yes, not exactly
Not-
the
not-
pinnacle of science fiction, fantasy, and horror, but I am.
Depends on how you look at it.
I am
Seda
aware
Thompson?
of it.
Yes, not Sadie Thompson. Not Sadie Thompson. It's the young girl, Meredith Baxter.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Right.
And she thought I wrote very well for women. So she recommended me to the family producers.
Oh, okay.
So I
Okay.
wrote an episode for them, which they entirely changed. I got the credit, I got the money, but they entirely changed it.
Wow.
And then I had a succession of things like that where I pitched stories, I got the job, I got the money, I got the credit, and you would never recognize anything that in there that I had written.
Right. The final product.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's I got crazy with that.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
I wasn't in it to be a hack. you
Right.
know.
Right.
You know, writers talk about their creations as their babies, you know, and that's exactly the way I felt. And if you're gonna put my baby in the furnace, forget about it, you know.
Right.
Yeah, you
God, that's an awful image, isn't it?
But
Jesus
you
Christ.
also wrote for. I remember when this show came out. It was the Power of Matthew Starr.
Matthew Starr.
Yeah.
Early
Another,
80s.
another story exactly like that.
Really?
Exactly. They said to me, we have to have this episode in a week.
Jeez.
And I gave them the story. They said, yes, go ahead and write that. So I wrote it in a week, and I was waiting for the order for the second draft. I mean, my life with writing and television is a horror story. It has every single thing
Except for the getting paid part.
yeah, well, that was important because
Yeah.
I had no money at the time.
Yeah.
So I had to be on the Paramount lot the next Monday, and I dropped over to the Power of Matthew Starr set to the office, and I said to the secretary, you know, I'm Walter Koenig. I wrote the first draft. I'm waiting for the go ahead on the second draft. You guys said you wanted it so quickly. And she said, "Oh," and she sort of averted her eyes, and she said, "We're shooting it." I said, You're shooting my first draft? No, it's not your first draft. We rewrote it over the weekend, and there was nothing. You know what was in it that was mine? A couple of weapons that I had devised.
No.
Wow.
That was the only thing in it. So when that happens to you, and it happened to me several times, it may be every writer's story, I don't know, but I wasn't constitutionally evolved enough to roll with the punches.
Right.
I said, that's it. I'm not going to write anymore for television.
Okay.
I continued to write, and I wrote some screenplays, and I had a couple of options, and I made some money, and then we actually produced a film that I wrote. But yeah, I abandoned writing for television when, look, I went in to pitch a story for a show. It had been a movie about a dog, and it was one of those anthropomorphic dogs.
Right.
You know the name of the movie?
Well, like what era?
Like a
what
Scooby-Doo type
from like
thing?
what era?
No,
at the time?
it was a real life.
Oh, like Benji, like
Yes,
that kind of thing.
Okay, like Benji.
It was
Okay.
Benji.
I love Benji.
I'm so happy for you. so I went in, and I sit down in this room, and there are 4 or 5 more writers in the room. I had not had this experience before, where we were all sitting there, all with our notebooks, and the producer gets up and says, "Okay, now Benji," and he's. And the guy's tongue is bobbing in and out of his mouth as he's talking.
Okay.
And then he says, and the girl is she's in this pit, and he jumps up on the table, and he's on all fours and saying, he's looking around, and he's trying to find somebody. And I'm looking at this, I'm saying, I'm in the insane asylum.
Right.
These people are all, and the other writers are all madly taking notes.
Yeah.
It's like
And I said, I've fallen down the rabbit hole.
That's just weird.
Okay, no. Wait a minute.
No,
this,
that's
no,
weird.
no.
He's
This,
right. He's right.
Walter. You're saying that other writers are writing. Here's a guy who's being creative. He's trying to help give you the idea of. Oh, come on. No.
Oh no! Don't scare your writers. That's number one.
Wow.
Well, you're right. They took it seriously.
Yes, and you were like,
I took my papers and I dropped them in the bin and I walked away after it was over. But I thought that was bizarre. That was so bizarre.
I thought you should
couldn't
have just
deal with
peed
it.
on a table. That's
right.
crazy.
okay,
Wow.
Crazy.
okay. So
Well, yeah. So around the time like the animated series now happened, and the original Trek is over, but the movies haven't started yet. There's one show that you were in I wanted to ask about because it's a low budget little odd show that kind of has a special place in our hearts.
Yeah.
It's a Canadian show, the STARLOST.
STARLOST.
And you actually played a character named Oro, an
That's
alien.
right. And I was in a gold outfit.
very gold.
You still have the outfit.
Oro, gold.
And the premise of the show was that there
Was there a premise?
it's kind of
Let's call
an
Harlan.
arc in space. Yeah, arc in space, and there's different domes, and all the domes are a different civilization.
Yeah.
And the giant ship is kind of on a collision course with
With the sun or something,
sun.
right? Or
So it's Kira and his companions are trying to go from each dome to find a way to stop the thing from crashing to the sun. And Oro comes aboard the ship. The show is,
the first extraterrestrial of the show.
I think so, yeah. Shot on video, extremely low budget, a very kind of low key, slowly paced show. I just wanted to ask like what it was like working on that, because how different it was from like, let's say, the original Trek, because it just seemed like a very cutting corners kind of show. But was it fun to do? Were the other actors fun to be with?
I had a good time. There was no pressure. I was working, for some reason, I wasn't shooting in Hollywood. I think the same situation in Hollywood would have caused me to feel some pressure, some stress. But up there, it was very easy. I worked with Keir DeLay from 2001, and he had graduated from Neighborhood Playhouse a year or two before I had. And so I had met him in New York long before I went up there, years and years before I went up there to shoot that. And I had a good time. Harlan Ellison created the show. But he was so unhappy with
Right.
the way it worked.
Well.
So he used his pseudonym,
Yeah.
called Wiener Bird.
Yeah.
But Harlan, bless his heart, and I haven't always agreed with him, as
Many people haven't agreed.
we had a particularly tumultuous relationship.
Really?
Fuck you! No, fuck you! Fuck you twice! Yeah. Over and over. I guess that's going to be cut out. I don't know.
Oh no!
That actually
This is a
sounds like
part-
Harlan. No, that sounds like Harlan Nelson. Yeah.
And he's not well now. And
Okay. Well,
I
wish him the
spoke
best.
to him a few days ago. But in any case, I don't want to digress too far because I'll fall off the end of the world. And and I won't remember where the hell I was. Where was I, as a matter of fact?
Harlan Nelson, fuck you.
So I enjoyed it. I enjoyed being there. I did 2 episodes. I was supposed to do 3 more if the show had continued. It got canceled mid-season.
Oh, okay.
But I wore this gold lame outfit.
Right.
I remember it well.
Yeah. And when I walked, my thighs rubbed together. You hear this swish, swish, swish. And these poor actors, these regulars, Keir Delay and the 2 Canadian actors, whose names I don't remember, to my regret and my shame, they had been working all night. The actors' union there did not have, it was not a strong union.
Right.
And they worked overtime, hours and hours and hours,
Really?
without remuneration and without any concern for their well-being. So I set that up to tell you that they heard this swish, swish, and every time I walked on the set, I stepped out of my spaceship onto theirs, they started laughing. And they started giggling. And it went on. And they couldn't stop themselves. We've had that experience.
Sure.
And the last time I had that was when I was in 9th grade, and they sent me to the nurse.
What happened?
No.
I couldn't stop laughing. So to a point, I understood it. And so each time I come on, I'd say, hello again, or whatever it was that I said. And they would just fall down hysterically. Well, I took it 3 or 4 times, and then I got pissed off. And I said, fuck it. Either you behave like professionals, or I'm leaving. And in fact, I did leave. I walked off the set.
Wow.
And I walked a couple of corridors away, and I sat on the stairs. And the director came to me and said, they're sober now. I mean, they've sobered up. They're not giggling anymore. Unfortunately, I sort of lost a friend because I was getting along really well with Keir Delay. We had the same situation with our fathers. His father had been a communist. My father had been a communist. So we had a chance to share notes, and we just hit it off. But I had obviously embarrassed him and the other actors by telling him to shut the fuck up, and so I finished the show, and that was the end of it. Except I did meet him years and years later at a convention, and we got along well. I mean, it was like all that time had softened things.
Right. That's good.
So in any case, yeah, I enjoyed doing that. I knew that the directors they got were soap opera directors from New York. And they didn't have science fiction writers.
Right.
And that's why Harlan quit, because the show just did not continue the vision that he had.
And he was fine with you continuing to act in it, even though he jettisoned himself?
I don't know. We didn't talk about it.
Oh, okay.
Right. But it does have, the show does have a kind of a cult following, because it's one of those shows that you'd find on late night television, what is this show?
I'll tell you a funny thing. They took my 2 episodes and put them together.
Yes.
And made a movie.
Yes, and they created, I think they did it with a couple other episodes too. They made like 3 or 4 STARLOST quote movies out of a couple episodes.
Yeah, and they spelled my name wrong.
Oh my gosh. Are you kidding me?
No.
Oh my gosh. That's pretty bad.
Canadian spelling.
Wow, that's
Well,
pretty bad.
It's amazing.
So you did that, and you did the writing. Okay, not really working out for you. The Star Trek movie is still a little ways away, but you would go to these conventions, and I have to tell you, Walter, one of the happiest moments of my life was actually seeing you, George, and James Doohan all on stage for this at the Star Trek convention, and it was such a thrill to see you guys up there. And the funny thing is, it was the first time I'd ever heard your voice without the Russian accent, and I flipped out and went, "Whoa, that was weird." And of course, it's like, when I saw you as a kid, you have the Russian thing, and I don't know, I didn't know what to expect, but it was so weird to hear you speak with a regular, without the Russian accent. But you were really passionate about something, and I don't know if you remember this, but you went on about the figures, the action figures that were out there.
I didn't have one, right?
And you did this whole thing. You said, there's one of Captain Kirk, and there's this one, and this one is, and you bang your fists on the table. You go, "There's never been a Chekov doll. I want a Chekov doll.
What year was this? Was
is
this like in late 70s?
No. This is actually in the 80s. Okay. But
these would have been like the Mego figures.
Yeah, the Mego figures.
This is when the senility started.
Yeah, no. But I remember thinking to myself, I said, yes, there needs to be a Chekov doll.
True.
There needs to be. Now, it took a little while.
Yes, now that's been been rectified.
But I am
Yes.
so glad. I mean,
Yes,
you have
me
to
too.
admit that. I mean, it's from the retro series,
the Mego style.
the Mego style, and you have to admit that looks terrific. This little,
I'm in love with it.
yeah. And you know what? This is Sean's, but mine is still sealed in its package.
Whoa.
Yeah, airtight.
Because if he gets his hands on that thing,
No.
Look out.
I like to have my things mint in package. So but and you know what else gets me? When they came out with the Star Trek figures, the original ones. This is back in like 75, 76. You see, they have Spock and Kirk, and they have Dr. McCoy, they have Scotty, they have Uhura, and they have all these aliens. And I was thinking they couldn't have made a Chekov and a Sulu. And that kind of irritated me because some of these aliens didn't really look the Neptunian. Where was he? What episode was he in? And they didn't really get the Gorn right, which was really the lizard guy from
I think
But that's the way they work.
it must be, just looking at it from an outside view, it must be kind of surreal to then you finally get your action figure and there it is, and just that, wow, there I am.
Yeah,
I'm a toy.
You are in a package. Isn't that kind of cool?
Yeah, it is. I'm not gonna fool about this. Is very serious. I'm not gonna fool around about that. Actually, as a kid, I was a collector, and I collected comic character figures.
You were a collector, a toy collector?
Oh yeah. But I also collected pinback buttons and bubblegum cards. All these things as a kid. I was a little on the lonely side.
Well, what kind of things?
Yeah.
Was it? What kind of toys did you? Was it,
It was
mechanical toys? Was it battery toys?
No,
Was it
just figurines?
figurines,
Yeah.
like porcelain figures, or
No,
like,
at that point, I was collecting the plastic stuff that was
Okay.
coming out.
Okay.
Back in the 40s, and the iron, like the soldiers.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
the lead
Wow.
soldiers, metal
Yeah,
soldiers.
yeah,
Sure,
yeah.
sure.
And you're still a bit of a collector now, right?
I'm more than a bit. I'm an obsessive compulsive.
Fantastic.
Are you a toy collector
Join
too?
the club.
You're in good
Oh,
company.
hey,
Yeah.
hey.
I'm the guy that built the second floor on my house so that I can have my collection. I'm
Nice.
serious.
No, that's.
That's hardcore. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to decide.
I thought I couldn't love you more, and now.
I'm.
Yeah.
I actually about 6 months ago, I looked at all this stuff and I said, why am I doing this when I'm going to be here for such a brief time at this juncture? I'm not going to be around that much longer. I'm going to stop. And I stopped for about 12 seconds. And I said, wait a second, I'm not throwing in the towel yet.
Yeah, nanobots.
I'm gonna go on.
Who
as
knows?
if- yeah, right. I'm gonna go on as if I had lots of time.
Stem cells, and you got another 100 years.
Yeah.
It's a passion.
Do,
Yeah,
do you
that's cool.
did you ever go to the Glendale Toy Show?
I used to go. I was
Every 6 months.
Yeah,
Oh my God, I go there.
Wow.
Oh yeah. It's a shame how. I mean, went before. I started to go before eBay. And that's when
Oh,
it was
yeah.
huge.
Well, that's-
where it had multiple floors, and it was like heaven. I was there all day.
Did you go to the Rose Bowl? The swap meets? Or the
No. It was because at that time I didn't live here yet.
Are the swap meets good? Can you find good stuff at
Well,
those too, though?
Not
Not now.
Not anymore.
Yeah, by
Not
the time,
now.
though, I mean, yeah.
If you if you saw this there, some
Yeah.
clown is going to say, "Oh, it's $100,"
Yeah,
and it's not
no.
worth $100.
Hey!
Walter, it's out of the
No, it's
package.
worth 200.
No, Walter, it's out
At
of
least.
it's out of the package, and it's like people are
Let
they're-
me have it. Let me have it for a second.
Oh, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
this is Sean's.
I want you to observe.
Walter is holding his figure. And now his figure is kissing Walter's ring on his hand like he is the holy
It's like the
Pope.
Godfather.
$250.
All right.
Oh my God, I can't do
See,
that
now
with.
it's
I can't
No,
do
you
that with.
can't.
That's
No, you
right.
can't, Larry.
Mine's meant to.
Mine has the advantage now.
Oh,
That's awesome.
I'm just happy that I've reached this age so I could witness that. Fantastic.
but mine's mint.
Walter, I think you touched on it a little bit before too, but
I haven't touched it at all.
Can you point?
He was
I
fondling
swear to
it.
God.
Point on the doll where you were touched.
but just kind of the fandom culture and the convention circuit has changed so much now. It's such a big corporate, huge, massive business now. It's so different. The early conventions, the first few conventions of Star Trek, it still must have been more of an intimate, almost homegrown kind of experience, right?
A lot more like
It's-
fan-made things, and like you go to conventions now, it's like kind of all the same stuff.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, if I go to a comic convention, where the word comic is in the title of the convention, I don't recognize 98% of the stuff that's being sold.
Right.
I mean, it's anime and it's games, and the people who are in those games are now, special guests of the convention.
Yeah.
Right,
People who do the voiceovers. So if it's not a Star Trek convention, though they do have Star Wars stuff, but that's the only merchandise that I'm familiar with.
Right. Well, because I think when the original Trek was on, this stuff wasn't mainstream.
No.
I mean, it was in the fringes. It was like this little kind of family of people who liked this stuff.
Yeah,
But-
we had Lincoln Enterprises where you could get the little Enterprise pendant and the insignias.
Yeah,
and
right. Well, now it's just
Creation cornered the market on these things
creation
for a long
conventions.
time.
Yeah, that's true.
Well,
Yeah.
it was first Majel Barrett. It's Gene's wife. She used to set up Lincoln Enterprises,
Right.
and so she was merchandising the show.
But yeah, it's changed a lot. But it's still. But like again, it's just a testament to the show that in whatever incarnation it's taken, it's still with us so much.
Do you collect Star Trek stuff?
Do you have any of these Star Trek figures? Like, do you have you?
Do you have all of
of
your
you?
figures?
I have all of my figures.
Nice.
Absolutely.
Do you have this one?
Yeah, that looks like
Hamilton?
Yeah,
the
yeah.
porcelain?
But you know who it looks like? It looks like Keanu Reeves.
Or he looks like you.
Yeah.
It's funny you should say that because I was a bit disappointed with the likeness.
But they
I'm
all-
one of these
but
clowns.
all of those kinda look
I
like
got.
that.
No, they don't all look.
Yeah,
like,
they
yeah, they do. But But I'm one of those clowns that got the whole set.
Yeah, well, then I'm a clown too.
Hey, we're in the same club.
In fact, I just got a fan sent me it's a Lego set
Oh, okay.
with 4 little figures, and you build the bridge behind it or something. And the 4 figures, it's Chekhov, Scotty, and 2 Klingons, and we all have swords.
Swords.
Yeah.
So like Day of the Dove?
Oh yeah,
That's great.
Cool.
That's great.
That's awesome. You exist in Lego form. That's cool.
I know.
Wow.
It's
How
just
many more
amazing.
mediums? Light bright or what else can there be?
I don't know. I'm thinking soap.
Oh,
Yeah.
Chekhov soap.
Yeah.
Soakies.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So you do some conventions, and then when did Star Trek: The Motion Picture that came out in '79?
Da, 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 da.
Yeah. So when you heard that this was in development or something, were you excited? I mean,
Were you part of the
Yeah.
show that was going to be before?
'Cause it was
they were gonna
tried-
get the
attempted
movie?
before, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's an interesting question. What happened was that I think it was like 1975. Jimmy Doohan calls me and says, "So what do you think about this letter we got from Gene?"
oh no.
Oh, no.
God, you guys are pretty sharp. You're right on the ball. And of course, you know what I say.
All right. Yeah.
What letter? So I called up Susan Sackett and I said, evidently I didn't get this letter about it. We're all coming back.
Lost
She
in the
says,
mail.
"Oh, Walter, stop being so neurotic. Everybody's going to be back. Don't worry. Don't worry about it. Gene is out of the country. Of course he's out of the country. Of course he's out of the country. When I need to know something, and I'm getting my stomach is in cramps, and
Right.
I'm really unbearable to live with." And he calls me. He comes back and he calls me on a Sunday and says, "Walt, actually, no, you're not going to be in it." Yeah, he said, I'm very sorry, but this is the situation. The series takes place 3 years before the Star Trek series took place. It's now 5 years after the show has been canceled. And you were 9 years older than the character to begin with. So you're talking about 15 years difference.
Right.
And I don't think you can play 15 years younger than you are. And what could I say to that? I said, "Your mother." No, I didn't. No, I said, "You're right. You're right." He suggested, "Well, we'll bring you back as Chekhov's father." I said, "Okay." But I thought that was the end of it.
Right.
And I said, "Okay, that's the way it goes." So then a year goes by, and we're going to do a movie, not a series. And I don't know what the chronology is because we went back and forth so many times.
Right.
Come in for a fitting. So I came in for a fitting. They said, "Well, your costume still fits. You're the only one." So I went home thinking, well, that's really neat. My costume still fits. Ring. Hello, what? We've been postponed. What? Yeah, 6 months. What? And that was it. And I thought, well, that's dead.
Okay.
And 2 years go by, and they call us in again. They say, we're making the movie. Now, they had a big media day, and they built a sort of an ersatz bridge.
This is Paramount, right?
Yeah, Paramount, right. I'm sorry. And they had me in one seat and George in the other, and Bill is in the center seat, and they had 2 seats up toward the back of the room where Spock and DeForest were, and Jimmy was. And Bill gets up out of his seat, it's a true story, and says, welcome everybody. So happy you could be here for the beginning of this new endeavor that we're going on, this new enterprise. And he said, I'd like to introduce you to the cast. My good friend, Leonard Nimoy, Mr. Spock, DeForest Kelly, who I love like a brother. Jimmy Doohan, who's playing Scotty. Oh, the always sexy, vivacious, beautiful Nichelle Nichols. Our extraordinary international contribution to the show, Mr. Sulu, played by George Takei. And
He
and Mr. Chekhov. Okay.
Oh my gosh!
he forgot your name?
Forgot
Wow!
my name.
Wow!
That's a true story?
That's an absolute true story.
Wow!
What did you do? What did you do?
Oh, wow.
Wow!
Oh my god.
So I had reason to question whether we were ever going to make this movie. And
Right.
then we were postponed again. You know, and then it was a mistake the studio made. They never made a second time. Was they had us on a 5-week deal, not a run-on-the-movie deal, a 5-week deal. So we were guaranteed a certain amount of money for 5 weeks' work. We went 16. So we all made a great deal more money than we would have made otherwise. But after that, it was never that. It was always a run-of-the-film
Right.
contract.
Right.
But so
Wow.
but you do the film, you guys are excited to get together. Star Trek the Motion Picture comes out. There's a bit of fanfare. Do you think it kind of ends there?
I certainly did.
Yeah.
I certainly did.
The reviews were mixed, you know. Some
Mixed, that's kind.
Hey, you know, I was a fan of the movie.
Well, you were a fan of Star Trek V, for God's sake.
No, sir. You are getting
That's Sean and I,
That's
but
right.
for a different reason.
Yeah, that's right. My Star Trek V DVD is still sealed in the package, and that's
That
where
doesn't mean you liked it.
No, that's right. I didn't like it.
Oh, that's right. Oh, okay.
Or are
Yeah,
you?
I know.
Wait a minute. Oh, no, are you a fan of Star Trek V, sir?
No.
Aha! What do you think of that, guys?
But
Right.
I thought the same mistakes that they made in Star Trek 1, they made in Star Trek 5. They did not have a complete film.
Right.
And for the
Right.
same reasons. They ran out of money. We started working on Star Trek 1 with 2 acts of a 3-act film.
Jeez.
And it got to a point when they painted themselves into a corner, and they didn't know what to do. So we'd come in the morning, and they say, go eat, breakfast, and we'd all have bagels and coffee, and we'd sit for 3 or 4 hours, literally. That's why we went from 5 to 6.
Oh my God!
And didn't they also waste a bunch of money on the special effects?
Yeah, the special
first
effects.
round of special effects.
Yeah, the people that they had contracted with didn't really come up with special effects. Came up with, I don't know what it was, but it wasn't up to what it should have been.
And then they felt, since they paid for all this stuff, right, that they had to use everything, because that's why there's just endless shots of V'ger.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, some of those were kind of cool, man.
Yeah, but I mean, there is something about
Yeah.
pacing that.
Yeah, well, you still don't have the couple
thing
guys
is-
singing, row, row, row your boat. I mean,
Well,
I'd rather.
a different set of
but
awful.
more to the point, they didn't have a climax.
Right.
I'm not talking about the kind that you guys don't have.
How do you know these things?
Oh, it's like he's in my brain.
No. Wow.
But yeah.
No, they wrote this story, and they didn't know how to end it. So instead of all the parts coming together, and instead of having an ending where everything rushes together and you achieve this extraordinary ending to the film, they left us with awe. AWE. Endless shots of V'ger.
Right,
yeah.
right.
It really
Yeah.
it didn't
With
it didn't
our
feel-
jaws dropped open and staring
Then
at
closed again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Remain that way.
And to some extent, that's what happened with Star Trek V. And again, for the same reason. Well, Bill was not a bad director. He did not direct badly. He had the bad luck running into a budget problem. And he couldn't do the ending that he wanted.
Yeah, the ending did seem really rushed.
But wasn't the concept also sort of similar? While you're suddenly coming face to face with the creator, and it's this idea that's so much bigger than a single movie can really do justice to, or at least that they were prepared to actually do justice to.
Well, that's exactly my point. Yeah, that's it. I mean, it had those things in common, and for very much the same reasons. You know, it's not that we suddenly, that our writers suddenly became dumb, or that the directors didn't know what they were doing. It's just that we did not have the facilities to do the picture as it should have been done.
The stronger films, the films that are much more character-driven, like Wrath of Khan,
absolutely,
and Voyage Home, and even Undiscovered Country, it was the character interaction and the character stories that really were the forefront, not the special effects.
The minute you see rocket boots, you're like, oh, okay, all right,
okay.
Spock is in rocket boots.
Right.
Yeah, we're getting a little Buck Rogers territory.
Well, we're jumping around a little bit, but okay. So Star Trek motion picture, you did it. Okay, maybe not the greatest film,
but it must have been fun to all be reunited.
Yeah.
It was fun to do. I had a good time doing it. And after all this time, after all of these false starts, and I've said this countless times at conventions, I really didn't feel we were shooting the film until the second shot. The first shot was a panning shot of the bridge where we're all at our stations, going about our business. At that point, I still felt they could say, cut, go home.
Right, yeah.
The second shot was Kirk steps out of the elevator, the lift. What was it called?
Yeah. That's right.
And Uhura, Sulu, and Chekhov run up to him.
Yes.
And so we rehearsed it, and then we stood there in place while the lights were set, with Kirk standing, on a tier above us, and us looking up at him. And that's when I said, "My God, we're making a movie. We're really making this movie." But up until then, it was hit or miss as far as I was concerned. So it was fun working on it, and it was great going to Washington. It was the big premiere.
Yeah.
On the plane, we were all sitting in first class. I said to Gene, I said, "So, this is pretty exciting." He had just gotten, it was a wet film. What do they call it? A wet, it was a wet print.
Okay.
I mean, it was,
like it just came out of the lab?
Yeah. And I said, "So it must be exciting for you to see all you've done come to fruition." And he said, "Yeah." And I had this sudden vision that, oh God, this is not going to be as good as...
Yeah, you hadn't seen it.
No, but his answer was so qualified that I just knew that there was something going to be wrong. And so we sat down to watch it. The red carpet, we all came in limousines, flash bulbs flashing away. It made us all feel very important. I think we were all in tuxedos. I sat down, the opening starts, dun, 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 dun. I said, "Wow, this is great!"
Oh.
Yeah, after that first scene, that first sequence, it began, and it just didn't, like you said, it didn't have the pace, it didn't have the conflict,
feel.
It didn't have the sense of urgency.
It didn't feel like Star Trek.
Yeah.
Right.
So the next day, the reviews came out, and they were merciless. Right? At least in Washington, they were merciless. And never in my life have I been so grateful that I was omitted from the cast. I'm the only one they didn't mention.
Wow. Nice.
And the tone of the piece of the 2 or 3 reviews that I read was, how dare these overaged television actors presume to think that they could work in a major motion picture.
Whoa.
Yeah, that was it.
That's harsh. That's
bad.
So I went home and said, thank God they didn't mention my name.
You do have a great scream in that, though.
You do.
Oh, yeah, the console.
The hamburger. Yeah.
But
so I actually bet, and I haven't paid him yet. Our associate producer, whose name I cannot remember at the moment, I paid him $50 that we would never do another one.
Oh,
Wow.
because it may not have done Star Wars numbers, but it did do okay.
It did do money.
It did make some money.
Paramount saw
enough to make them think, you know what? Maybe we've got something. Maybe we should try and do something with this.
Yeah, which is much to their credit, since they didn't figure they had a property like Star Wars.
No,
right.
It took Star Wars to come out,
and
be successful
for Star Trek. Yes,
for Star Trek.
Yeah,
to be made
motion picture. Yeah. But they brought in Nicholas Meyer to help create this Star Trek II Wrath of Khan.
And didn't they, at the same time, weren't they kind of edging out Gene too, a little bit?
Well, that probably was happening. I'm sure that was happening. Fortunately, I didn't know about that. I mean, I heard rumors, and I felt badly about it.
Right.
Sure.
I don't know how much of it was justified or not. I mean, this was his baby. He had very strong feelings about how it should be done, and they may not have all been the best choices made. I don't know, but I know there was conflict, and there was some bad feelings, and Nick was terrific. Nick is a brilliant writer.
Nicholas Meyer is and
really
director, just terrific guy.
So I'm very happy that he became part of the team. In fact, that he guided the team on the two films that he was most involved in,
Right.
or the three films that he was most involved in.
And considering all that has gone on in the past with your role in the franchise, to have number 2 come out, to have Wrath of Khan, and you're an integral part of it.
Yeah, you are like the forefront.
Yeah.
I mean, you were there. You were like the first officer to another captain on another ship.
And you're actually the only crew member of the Enterprise to have a face-to-face encounter with Khan in the film.
That's right.
Because Khan's always in the other ship.
Yeah. Does that mean anything?
It does.
Well, to us, we're nerds,
Yes.
We're like, hey,
But
that's
also-
totally cool.
And I know this has been cited before, but of course, the irony is that Space Seed, the original episode of Khan, was the first season, and Chekov wasn't in that first season.
What do you mean he wasn't in it?
You see,
Yeah,
He was in it. He was on the third deck behind the boiler room and was so sick with a condition called malaproximality that he was in the bathroom and hiding there for hours and hours, where poor Mr. Khan, his genetically engineered kidneys about to explode, pounded pitifully on the bathroom door, begging to be let in, until finally the door opened. Chekhov stepped out, Khan grabbed him and said, "Your face, I will never forget."
Exactly. That's exactly how I see it.
when you
and you don't want to be a writer.
You know what? When you explain that, I bought it. No, everyone's laughing, but I'm like, oh my God, you know what? Maybe Chekov was, one of those smaller crew members that you didn't see.
To the bridge yet.
No, so I bought it,
the
sir.
400
I bought
plus
it.
crew.
You know what, though, in that movie, what I love about your spacesuit, the spacesuit has this handle on the front. Which might as well have been, it's like, oh, this is the Khan handle.
Here.
If ever Khan is around, this is what he'll pick you up by.
Now, I heard Ricardo Montalban talk about how he loved playing this role, but when he was offered the role, he couldn't remember because he had been doing Mr. Rourke on Fantasy Island for such a long time. And he asked Nicholas Meyer, he goes, I don't exactly remember. Can you show this to me? Can I see? And Nicholas Meyer goes, oh, no, you're going to be fine. He goes, no, I need to see the film. So they got the 60mm print of Space Seed and showed it to Ricardo Montalban. He goes, yes. And that's when he knew how to play it. Did you enjoy interacting with him?
I loved working with him. He was great.
Yeah.
He was delightful. Now, this is probably a reference. You guys aren't old enough to know.
Oh, you'd be surprised.
You'll see.
Okay, so we had if you don't laugh even if you don't get the joke, because
We can do that.
I don't like dead air.
Neither do we. Yeah.
So Nick Meyer had a cocktail party for us the night before we started to shoot, and of course I was not in the first one, Space Seed.
Yeah.
So I went up and introduced myself to Ricardo Montalban. Mr. Montalban, I'm Walter Koenig. I play Chekov. He says, "Oh, we are going to get on wonderfully together." And he says, "Who is going to play Terrell?" And at that point, we hadn't cast Paul Winfield.
Yeah.
So I said, "I don't know." I said, "Oh, yeah, I do." I said, "Fernando Lamas." See, I know it's dead. You don't know.
I know Fernando Lamas.
Yes.
Yeah, of course we know Fernando.
No, that's funny. That's funny.
It was funny.
Yeah.
For people who are 60 or older, it's funny.
And did he go,
He went, "Oh."
That actually would have been great.
Yeah, that would have been great. Yeah.
yeah.
It would have been interesting casting.
Yes.
Yes. So you do Star Trek 2, Wrath of Khan. You've got some great scenes. You've got a little creature that goes in your ear, and you
Again,
do
more agony and pain and
Yes.
screaming for Chekhov.
But maybe like that's like the Oscar scream.
Yes.
Like that scene.
Well, that was a stunt bug.
What do you mean that was
Not a real bug?
It was a real bug. It was a stunt bug.
Wait, what do
you mean the little baby?
The
that's,
little
We're showing him a model of one right
and
now.
even getting it close
getting
to
some
Walter.
flashbacks.
Walter is getting kind of squeamish here because
It makes me nauseous. To look at.
well, it went inside your ear and
they're pets.
No kidding. It went inside my ear.
and blood came. Oh yeah.
But that's a great. I mean, I love that whole sequence of you being taken over by the bug and constantly fighting it throughout the final
Did
moment.
you notice that? You notice that? There was a scene where when I wasn't talking I was talking to the Kirk's former lover. What I think.
Yes.
Oh yeah. God, we should know this,
BB
right?
Bash.
Yeah, BB Bash.
Yeah.
But that's the actress.
I think that was who I was talking to, or maybe it was to Kirk. But when I talked to him, I was like this, and when I didn't talk, I just my face just
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, great stuff.
It was subtle, but
It was great. No, I love that.
You were giving the transmission
Yeah.
to them, and
Yeah.
then when it's turned off, it's like
Yeah,
that was
and also
good.
you kind of where he goes, the planet has checked out, and just it seemed kind of phony, you know. There's something behind those eyes, you know. I know, So you were like that double agent kind of a thing.
Yeah, we shot the second part of that at Lucasfilms.
No.
Okay. After the film was completed, the first part, when they put it in my ear, they drilled a hole in my
Your space helmet?
helmet, and they had a guy standing above me, and they had the thing on the little bug on a very fine filament.
Right.
And they put it on my cheek, and then he was above and he pulled it up my face to my ear.
Really?
And then they reversed it because it like lands on your. Looks like it lands on your thing.
Little
too.
That's
slimy,
really
little
effective
slimy
for a
guy.
simple effect.
That's great.
The rest of it, when it comes out of my ear, that we did at Lucasfilms.
Okay.
And what they did was they sculpted a life-size edition of my ear, and also a much bigger one with a larger orifice. So
there's a model of your ear.
I know. I'm sorry.
No, there's a model of your.
I should work clean.
There's
I
a
know.
model of your ear, but it's big.
well, there's one they put me on a table covered in the same material that I fell down on.
Right.
on
Okay,
in the
okay.
cave.
Right.
And they drilled a hole in the table.
Okay.
And they had a guy under the table with a string, and they had to stuff the little one in my ear. So you saw it start to come out of my ear.
Yeah.
And then at some point they cut to the sculptor.
Yeah.
With
Right.
the sculpture, which had the larger hole.
Right. Mhm.
Right.
And then this guy,
Yeah, he's right here.
Yeah.
He's crawled over here.
he's the one in close up that came out of my ear.
Right. That's awesome. Yeah, it's very effective. Kind of like it's like he's.
Did
got
they let
control of
you keep the ears? Because how great would that be, right? Come on.
That would be so wonderful.
We did a night for like Thanksgiving, a centerpiece. Very nice.
Well, I mean, because who could say, "Here's my ear"? That would be cool. Okay.
We're weirdos. We'd like that, you know.
No. But then so Chekhov goes through some pain and suffering.
Right.
Then it comes out. You're resting or whatever. When you go back to the ship, they kind of fix you up a little bit. You kind of come out the elevator doors and Captain Kirk is there, and you say, "Can you use another hand, Admiral?" And
Yeah.
he says, "Take your seat." And it was like you were holding it together. You were like just a little beat up a little bit, but you came out and you sat in your chair.
Jesus, sounds impressive.
Well, That's
good stuff.
It was
Come on.
awesome.
Yeah.
I bought it.
It's great
Hook, line, and
stuff.
Seeker, man. I really
They
did.
were-
Great
they really
job.
But that movie, for me at least, was a real return to form.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To the show,
Yeah.
but successfully translated to the big screen as a
Yes.
movie. That
Yes.
was done.
That's
just
what we
right.
were waiting
Well,
for.
see, what that picture had, and what every story should had a very well-defined protagonist, Mr.
Absolutely, yeah.
Mr. Shatner, Captain Kirk, and a wonderfully defined antagonist who was every bit his equal.
Right.
That's what makes conflict.
Right.
If you don't have two forces, an unstoppable force and an immovable force coming together, then you lose the dynamics.
Right.
And he was such a wonderful villain Ricardo, that he was a match for our captain.
Right. It was a good ballet between Kirk
Yeah,
and Khan.
yeah,
It was
yeah.
great. Yeah, it was
so
really good.
wonderful.
And if you could just clear this up for me, those weren't his pecs, right?
Yes, they were.
They were?
See, I knew. See, we had this
Nice.
discussion. No, I knew
No,
that was him.
I'm delighted to know that I'm wrong.
No, he
'cause
worked out.
Yeah,
He was
he's in
beefy.
He's
Yeah,
fit.
and I've been asked that 100 times.
I'm sorry.
No, it's
I'll
all right.
leave.
No, it's all right. It's all right.
He's clearing up the air.
No, I'm
We're getting to the
so
truth,
happy.
sir.
It's an
to
urban
know that.
legend.
Yeah.
So Star Trek 2, I mean, okay, great job. Then Star Trek 3. Okay, we feel like, okay, we've got
We're
this.
going to go through all of these, huh?
We'll gloss over
you know,
a few
you know
of
what?
these. We'll gloss over a few
Walter,
of these.
I know
You
you.
have 5.
No, I'm okay. I'm okay.
Okay. Star Trek 3.
Yes.
It's lunchtime.
No.
Now.
No. If I can, I'll try and whip through it here. Okay, so maybe not. I mean, it kind of brings Spock back. It's kind of the story that we wanted to hear. They put you in like a pink shirt or something. It really,
yeah.
which really wasn't. I'm thinking this guy's a badass. Why, it was a little foofy,
Well, there's a little anecdote about that.
Oh, okay.
Most of my stories are little anecdotes because I wasn't involved in a major way. But they put me in this, what they said was a Pushkin-inspired shirt. Pushkin was a Russian poet. With a Buster Brown white collar and a pink shirt. And that was Star Trek 3, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. It just goes to show you how programmed I was back to the days of the 70s. I hated it.
Yeah.
And but I didn't say anything.
Not a fan.
I am this supporting character. And Leonard came up to me like on the third day of shooting and said, we're going to drop the collar. It's a couple of the executives don't like it. I said, oh, thank God. And he says, you didn't like it? I said, I hated it. He says, why didn't you say something? And he really got angry. It was
Wow.
the angriest he ever got at me.
Oh.
And I didn't get angry because, and I said to him, because I didn't think I had any say in it. That's the way I had been programmed.
Right.
I've been fired from 2 shows that I've done in the last 20 years because I've talked back to the director. But not then. Not at that point.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel that I had, I had a voice. So I just went along with it. So yeah, it was kind of silly looking. So we took it out. But that's my little anecdote.
But Star Trek 3, so they had you in that outfit. Okay, we get Spock back. When we go to the story I heard was for Star Trek 4, you actually did say something. You said, I don't want to wear this little outfit. Maybe it's because you would Leonard Nimoy had this. And so they give you this badass kind of leather jacket for Star Trek 4. You've got the brown leather jacket. And I remember you telling the story about how you were thrilled to be on the battleship wearing the leather jacket, having hundreds of sailors chasing after you. And then you go, wait a minute, I didn't mean it like that.
Did you mean it like that?
I like your stories better than mine.
That's what you said. I'm quoting you from the convention. I mean, the whole thing. You goes, I'm wearing this leather, and
I do remember.
Okay.
Look, I do remember shooting on the streets of San Francisco in my leather outfit,
and you were awesome.
and that I got a lot of whistles.
And I want to apologize about that.
He's from
Well,
San Francisco.
From both ladies and young guys. So I felt very popular, because I wore this outfit, and everybody found it appealing. The part about the sailors on the ship, and they weren't sailors; they were Marines.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
I stand corrected.
No, that's okay. When there's a police force on a ship, it's usually Marines, and they have total authority. And if they go up to a lieutenant commander, a naval, and hit him with a rifle butt, they can do that. They can hit a ranking officer because they are the police force.
Right.
And there's that mentality too. So the fun thing was about that scene, and those were the days when I still had all my parts were working, all my hinges. Leonard said, now they're going to chase you across the bridge. So I said, do I go full bore or do I, go half speed? No, Walter, you run as fast as you can. And was sort of very condescending. I said, okay, Leonard. I was captain of my high school track team. I didn't tell him that. And I took off, and I left them so far behind. There was no way they could ever have caught me. I could have done twice around the ship, and I would have been coming up on the rear end of their.
That's great.
So he said to me, we're going to have to do it again, Walter. And this time, go a little slower. So I did. I felt that was a great moment.
Another great example of comedy. It's funny because you have two chase scenes. You have that one, and then you have the one on the gurney.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And
Oh yeah, that was fun.
Yeah.
That was fun.
And then, of course, you had mentioned on the street, that's probably one of my favorite moments in Star Trek 4. In Star Trek 4, this is the voyage home. This is when the Enterprise has to go back in time to get these whales. And so you go back in time to the 1980s in San Francisco, and there's this moment when you're all on the street and you say, okay, we're going to go in these different areas. We're going to try and solve these certain issues or whatever. And you and Uhura are on the corner trying to find out where the
Nuclear vessels.
Sorry, well, I wasn't going to make you say it, but thanks for saying it. and what
you say that in my phone.
no, but Walter, the scene seems to, it's funny and it seems to go on. And were you improvising at that moment?
Yes.
Really? Because you go and it's hello. I mean, you do this little thing. So that was just you.
Yeah,
That was great.
Again, another great comedy scene.
Well, that was Leonard's choice. He said, just go with it. Do what you want to do. So
My wife wasn't a Trekkie, okay? I took her to see Wrath of Khan. She goes, whatever. She loved Star Trek 4. It was something that the non-Star Trek fans could really relate to.
Yeah, I think it was probably more accessible for some
It had some nice comedy in it. It kind of related to today at that time in the 80s. And and at that time, Captain Kirk, Mr. Spock, these characters had become part of American culture. Absolutely. They were rather iconic at that time. So even though my wife wasn't a fan, she knew who they were.
yeah, you got to love the scene in the truck between Spock and Kirk.
That's a really good
Do you like
scene.
it? I like Italian.
That was really beautifully done.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a good one. Yeah.
So look, I'm excited. Star Trek 4. You have great moments in Star Trek 4. And then you guys do Star Trek 5.
Yeah.
And Walter, I'm trying to
But again, like it still did well enough.
4 was huge. 4 was huge.
Yeah, it was only $100 million movie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow,
and there wasn't an international market yet.
Right.
That's the thing. If we had an international market, we might have done a couple of more films.
But the funny thing is, with over the test of time, Sean, really quick, the test of time, it has put so much money in Paramount. I mean, with the VHS, DVDs. But then go ahead, Sean.
But what seemed like Undiscovered Country Part 6 was to be the kind of the send-off and the farewell, for all the original cast.
Oh, we skipped 5. Wow.
Well, I mean, I think
We talked about it a little
5,
bit, but yeah, it's like writing the ship again.
But 6, I enjoy for the murder mystery,
Yeah.
and all that stuff. The Manchurian Candidate kind of assassination thing happening is pretty cool. I really enjoyed that one. And they do something different with the Klingon characters too. I mean, Christopher Plummer, the Shakespeare quoting Klingon is great.
Fantastic.
But I thought that one too was a little more character driven, and I liked it. I mean, when you guys were working on that one, did you kind of feel like, okay, this is going to be kind of the final
The
one?
Swan Song, did you
Swan
feel
Song
like
in
it
a
was
way?
over at that time?
Well, first of all, I hated it.
Really?
Yeah, not because it wasn't a good film. It was a good film. But I thought that was exactly what was going to happen. It was going to be a swan song. It was going to give us each a moment. And I was looking forward. I thought you cannot ignore these secondary characters forever. They've got to have a moment. And Nick Meyer was writing it and directing it. And Nick had done so well by my character in the Star Trek 4.
Right. And 2.
And 2 as well. So I thought, this is going to be so much fun. And now I take the blame on this because obviously I should have been more mature. I should have accepted for what it was. I just felt that I'd been with this for so long, for so many decades.
Right.
Literally decades. And there wasn't going to be a moment for each of Sulu and Uhura and Chekhov. There wasn't going to be an acknowledgement, of some kind for the character. So I was just in a bad mood from the first day we started. I got into a fight with Leonard. I got into a fight with Nick. I got into a fight with Nichelle. The arguments that lasted 30, 40 seconds. But still, I couldn't get over it.
Wow.
And I admit to it, with a great amount of embarrassment that I wasn't mature enough to handle the situation. And that's why it answers another question. People say, if they don't say it to me, I'm sure they're thinking it. Jesus, he's been doing Star Trek for 50 years. because I've done a couple of
Web series?
web series, yeah, and playing Chekhov, and then I've done 2 films, low budget independent films, and it's like John Wilkes Booth's brother. The guy he played King Lear for 30 years. He just played the same character for 30 years,
Right.
And I'm sure to an independent, objective observer, that's what it looked like with me. I couldn't get rid of this character because that's all I had. And, well, that may be true, but I couldn't get rid of it because I had never brought him to life. And I was looking for the opportunity to bring him to life, to go out feeling that I have created a flesh and blood character and somehow worthy of all of this acclamation and reinforcement and
In history.
well, all of the applause that we had all received for doing parts that were minimal in their consequence, at least to me. That's why I've kept playing him, and that's why I said to Sky Conway, who's producing Renegade's Requiem, that I would do the part again if we could put him out of his misery, but in a very heroic fashion. I said it had to be better than what they did to Kirk.
In generations. Yeah.
I thought I have, most people know that there's no great love lost between myself and Bill, but I felt that that was so wrong.
Yeah.
It was just such a letdown.
Completely agreed.
It was such an insult.
Yeah.
And I think it was done on purpose. I really do.
Really?
Yeah, from what I've heard about the guy who produced those films, he didn't want to do anything better than that. Anyway, so we've achieved a really terrific ending.
Those web movies,
Yeah.
I think are really great, and I think that they really do your character justice and flesh out the character of Chekhov.
Well,
And-
certainly this last one.
Yeah.
This last one called Renegade's Requiem.
Okay.
It'll be out by the end of this month. They're looking to try to have a premiere here in town, and maybe
We're free.
and or as well in San Diego.
Oh, great.
So I don't know. I haven't seen it in its entirety, but I've seen enough to feel that we have a pretty darn good project here, and good.
And
progress.
with each one that I've seen, they seem to get like just the way they look better and better each time.
Yeah, and they got some terrific CGI.
Yeah.
They got a guy in Germany who's done some amazing stuff. I have seen that. So, for no other reason, I appreciate the opportunity to do all this ego stroking and talk about me as we have for so long. And I'm sure I put at least 30% of your audience to sleep. By now.
No. Well, we haven't even got to.
No. See, Walter, I know. Look, I just wanted to go over. I know we've talked a lot about Star Trek. I wanted to do one thing because there are a couple of things that we have to talk about that you did, and you have to talk more about Star Trek Renegades. But the thing I do love about Star Trek VI, what really meant something to me, was at the very end. And I understand you're not a big fan of the film, but at the very end, when you have all the
That
autographs,
was my idea.
Was it your idea?
Yep.
Wow.
Are you?
That's awesome.
You're not bullshitting
No,
me.
I'm not. That was
Because
my idea.
Walter, at that moment, to me, that was to the fans. That was to the people who were fans for years and years and years. And I nearly cried as those moments when the Walter Koenig came on and George and I mean, I go, oh my God. This is for me. This is for me. What a wonderful moment. And I know people have some issues with it. I still love it, and that ending means so much.
I love it. I also feel like, and you're talking about getting these accolades that you feel somehow you didn't live up to or didn't deserve or whatever. When we watch that show, I mean, I look at that cast as a family. And yeah, there are the leads, the obvious leads. But I mean, over the years and over the series and the movies, you get to a place where you love everyone. It really does feel like a family that belongs together. And so you take you out of it, and it's lopsided.
It's lopsided.
not right.
And, like every family, some people have issues with others, but it doesn't take away the fact that you guys are a family. At least that's how we see you guys.
Yeah.
For certain people, I mean, I think for our generation, for me, I was always into sci-fi and monsters and horrors. I always took to that stuff. And Trek was one of those. There's a few shows, like maybe the original Twilight Zone, but Trek, it's infused into my being. I mean, just the sounds of it, the dialogue. I just know that show.
To be in one of the greatest shows ever.
Yeah,
that,
I mean-
like almost single-handedly turned science fiction around and allowed it to grow up.
I mean,
But even if it didn't, even if it wasn't any of that, even if it ended up not being a huge thing that it was, for me watching it, it is that. It's just it's an old friend that I can always go to, and it still holds up.
And
it still
Yeah,
It's also,
entertains
it's
me.
also like an
Hallelujah, praise be to God.
and it's like an anchor of pop culture fandom too. I mean, before there were almost before there were comic conventions as we know them, there were Star Trek cons.
Yeah,
I mean, think about how many conventions are there of My Three Sons or the courtship of Eddie's
Oh
father?
no, I went to a really good one the other day.
or Hazel, you know. I mean, we've
Oh, the
talked.
Hazel
I
Con.
mean, we've talked about this
Walter, we got to
before.
go.
But okay, so you did Star Trek, and we're thinking
You knew Hazel and you didn't know Fernando Lamas?
We knew Fernando
Okay,
Lamas.
okay. So I think you're going to want to talk
So,
about
I mean-
something really special.
So in the 80s, there was a particular film you made in the late 80s that I really enjoy. It's an independent, low-budget science fiction movie that is
Triple
really,
X.
really fun.
No, come on.
And that's Moontrap.
Moontrap.
And Moontrap is great. And Moontrap, it's a starring role for you. It's
He's
you
the lead.
in an action hero mode. And you have a young Bruce Campbell as your sidekick.
Terrific.
Mr. Evil Dead.
And it's a really fun film that obviously, despite its low budget, makes the most out of its
Oh my God.
out of its budget.
So ambitious
is
and yet very
ambitious.
effective.
And very fun. I wanted to, how was that working on that film?
You know what I got out of that?
What?
I got out of the fact that I could be the lead in a film and not be a prick.
Right.
I was a good guy, you know.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the cast, the crew. I did nothing.
right.
I did nothing to offend anybody. It wasn't like I was walking on tiptoes. I was just being myself.
You didn't take lines away from people or anything.
Right. and I needed to know that that's the way I would behave before I could totally condemn Mr. Shatner.
Right.
But he's admitted that. Hasn't he admitted
Yeah.
that? Now it's kind of come full. I mean,
No, it is not admitted.
No.
No, he
But
doesn't.
but Moontrap is really fun, and it's you and Bruce Campbell are great together.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
it was great fun working with. It was great fun. Everybody, we really were a family. Everybody, you know, it was a union film, which was important to me. But everybody pitched in. You know, the makeup people helped move the sets, whatever, the lighting people. Everybody worked on the film together, and it was a great 2 weeks or 3 weeks, however long we were there. Yeah, that's a high point for me.
Yeah, it's really good. You're great in the action scenes.
yeah, you were great. It was great seeing you as the lead. I don't know. I got a kick out of it.
And as the plot goes, there are these aliens that we discover right outside our atmosphere, and they're this robotic race. And one of them comes to Earth. You defeat the thing on Earth, but then we find there are more on the moon. And so you guys plan this trip to the moon to confront these aliens. And the robots are great.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
really
the
effective.
special effects are
Good use of miniatures.
very much so.
Yeah, really cool.
And
Practical effects.
yes.
Yeah.
And what I really liked was
There was one big one.
Right.
Yeah.
It's great.
But the chemistry between you and Bruce Campbell, I thought, was wonderful. Like, you really did seem like friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was. I saw him. I think I saw him in Spain. At a film festival. I think that's where I saw him. In any case, yeah, he's the same guy, pretty much the same guy. So we got along well then. By the way, credit should be given. Robert Dyke was the director and the co-writer on the film, and I can't think of his co-author's name.
Oh, Ragsdale, I think.
Tex Ragsdale.
Tex
right.
Ragsdale, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, they did a really good job. Also, much in the Captain Kirk vein, in this movie where it's, you know, you're being pursued by these robotic creatures, Bruce Campbell's been lost, and you manage to still have time to have sex with the hot space girl.
That's right.
Lee Lombardi?
Yeah.
Oh, my
hey,
God.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa. Yeah.
Yeah.
Come on.
No, she
Come
was.
on.
She's very
So gorgeous.
Yummy.
Very. I'm an old married man.
This is in '89. Come on.
I was the married man in '89.
Isn't it great to be an actor?
Well, honey, I had to make out with this guy. It's
come
part of the
on.
job.
No, that was the one false note in the film. Truly, we're being pursued by this robotic race, and time out while we take off our clothes.
Well, one
It's a
could
little-
argue if you think you're going to die,
Sure. Yes. Yeah.
My bigger problem was the inflatable house. Like, robots are after us. Let's put up an inflatable house.
Yes, that's true.
But what I love about that movie too is as it goes along, I really had no idea where it was going.
Yeah, it was
and to the
unpredictable.
very end, I have no idea whether you are going to live or die.
Yeah.
And I'm not going
Yeah,
to tell.
yeah.
No,
but,
yeah.
And I will say this too. There's a movie I think made a good 10 years later with a much bigger budget, much more high profile, I think a bigger studio, called Virus with Jamie Lee Curtis. And it's the same idea of the robot using like human body
Cybernetic.
parts and, building it on top. It's the monster aspect of it was like exactly the same as Moontrap, but Moontrap was 10 years earlier. So
I think a much
saying.
better film.
So you did
Yeah.
it first.
that's right. That's right. So that was good.
Now, this all leads up to,
Yes.
Yeah.
I think,
Yep.
probably my favorite role of yours.
I think mine too.
Well,
Mine too.
The show Babylon 5, the role of Bester, the Psi-Cop. When I watched that series, and I went through all 5 seasons, and I go back to it again and again,
Yep.
and I wanted to see that spin-off show,
Yeah.
the Bester show, because honestly, that was my favorite character of the show.
now,
Fantastic.
Matt,
Give a little gist
for
of
the
what Babylon
listeners,
5 is and
because it's
Bester.
been a while.
Yeah. Well, the basic plot is there's this great war that has just happened between a number of alien species, and now they're kind of picking up the pieces, and you've got Babylon 5, this space station where all these
A neutral kind of
neutral
station.
place where all these alien races are intermingling.
Narn, Centauri,
Yeah, all
Minbari.
these, yeah, and trying to figure out what the next stage of life in the future is going to be. And in the middle of all this, you have this race who are another sect of humanity that have telepathic abilities. And every telepath has a different level of strength.
Yeah.
And Bester, your character, is a level 12, which is like about as high as you can go, or so we think,
Yeah.
within the series. And Bester is this Psi-Cop who it's his job, if there are rogue telepaths who are not part of the telepath community proper, you go after them. And you also put your nose into a lot of other things.
Yeah.
That
And because the idea is that telepaths are used like for negotiations to make sure people aren't lying, that
Right.
kind of idea.
It's
Yeah.
it's un-Chekhov like to me.
yeah.
I mean, it's
You're a
like,
heavy.
You're not. I mean, I know Matt likes it, the heavy, the kind
But you're-
of mean, but you know,
it's a really compelling character.
Yeah, and it's talk about a lot of different layers of, God, sometimes I really like you, but you're terrible.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Right.
it's kind of my favorite kind of villain.
how did you get this
Yeah,
part?
did J. Michael Straczynski come to you with this part in mind?
Well, yeah, but let me tell you a quick story before that.
Sure.
Let's hope that I remember your question you just asked.
No problem.
I knew him. I knew J. Michael. I didn't know him well. I knew him through Harlan Ellison. And in
Okay.
fact, Harlan had a couple of parties at his house, and I talked to J. Michael a couple of times there. And then he took over for Harlan on a show called, a radio show called Hour 25, which was like Saturday night at midnight. And it was a science fiction show that he hosted.
Oh, okay.
Harlan hosted it first, and then J. Michael hosted it when Harlan wasn't available. And he asked me if I'd come on with my wife, Judy Levitt, to enact a teleplay that he had written for Twilight Zone, the second coming of Twilight
Okay,
Zone.
right.
That they never produced on the air. And so we did. We said sure, and we came on, and it was a just 2-character piece. And that was the end of it. And then I was writing, trying to write a comic book. I think it was a comic book. And I never had gone out to coffee with him. I never had a drink with him. I just knew him really very casually. And for some reason, I called him. He was working on, I think, Murder, She Wrote.
Wow.
And I said, can we have lunch? I have an idea I want to talk to you about. And my idea was about a comic book, and I wanted to know if he would collaborate with me. It was extraordinarily egotistical of me to think that this guy who was making all these thousands of dollars a week, being a producer on this successful television show, is going to want to write a comic book with me. But he told me that he was very, very busy. He said, but I have a series in my head that I'm trying to sell, and I have a scene in my mind that I would like to do. And he said it would be the beginning of this show. What was it called? The place where everybody congregated and had,
Cheers.
No.
Okay.
I'm talking about Babylon 5.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The outdoor marketplace.
Oh, right.
yeah.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm sitting at a table with some other people, and the camera would just be panning past us and would just catch me sort of, and I'd be sitting there talking to somebody, and the camera would just pass me and keep going as I would say the line, "That's not the way we did it on Star Trek." And I said, "That's great. I'd love to do that." Yeah. So, and then I put it aside. And then he came back to me and said, I've sold this series. This was like a year later. He said, and I'd like to do an episode with you in it. And I said, great. And it was an episode where my character and another character, they are miniaturized, and they go into his brain. They go into the captain's brain. This is the captain before Bruce
Sinclair.
Yeah, right. And I said, that's great. I'd love to do that. And what do you know? I'm in Chicago. I get a heart attack.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah, and I'm laid up for 8 days. I have a quadruple bypass.
Jeez.
And first person other than my wife that I called was Joe. And I said, Joe, this was July, and they were going to start shooting it in September, I think, August or September. I said, I can't make it. I can't be there. I'll be rehabbing. She says, okay, we'll hold it. We'll hold the show for you.
Wow.
And I thought that was amazing.
Yeah.
I said, I've never heard of anybody ever doing that, Well, as it turned out, they couldn't do it. They ran out of scripts. Joe was writing all the scripts.
Yeah.
So he called me and said, I'll find you another show, another character. I said, okay. I came back. He had written Bester.
Wow.
And instead of one episode in the first season, I did 12 episodes over 5 seasons.
Yeah.
And it's the silver lining, It's a cloud with a silver lining.
Had he always intended your character to be recurring?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
No, it was just going to be a one-time shot.
Right. Wow.
But he got an immediate positive reaction in a kind of bizarre way.
Yeah.
I mean, I won a poll as the villain you love to hate most.
Yeah.
Well, your character, if in the first appearance, like you just rub people the wrong way, and it's like you're not a people person.
No.
You're also completely unflappable. That was something that I really enjoyed, is that no matter how anyone insulted you, you were like, that's fine.
Yeah.
But
it is like
I'm a P12.
Yeah. But like the Psi Corps itself, because the Psi Corps is all about control. And like no matter what horrible things or despicable things you would do, to you it was always justified. You were
right.
And that's what made you scary and kind of intimidating.
And you were also very, of course, loyal to
Right.
telepaths. And
Right.
that was a prime directive, in that character that was take care of the core, take care of telepaths.
Well, right. Well, that's what people would ask me. How do you play a character that you hate so much, who's such a bad guy? And my reply was always that he wasn't the bad guy, not to me.
Right.
There's no way that I can embrace that character and make it a part of me if I editorialize his behavior.
Yeah.
I have to, if I'm going to convince the audience that I am this character, I have to convince myself first. So that's what I did. That's the way I felt about him. And each time Joe would write a script and there'd be more to him than I had imagined, I had to somehow find a way to incorporate that. And it was a great adventure. It was a great adventure doing that, finding a way to justify all of that. I remember when I was in the neighborhood playhouse, they gave us, it was a drama school. One of the exercises they gave us was something on the order of, not the telephone book, but we were supposed to, they gave us some gibberish or something, and they asked us to make a dramatic scene with an objective and,
Right.
and relationships with other people, and do it in gibberish. But you had to be heartfelt. You had to believe in it. And that was sort of that exercise was sort of what this was about. It was taking a character and believing in him so much that I put aside all the objections to this guy and just went with who the character was.
And when you get into kind of like the world of espionage or, the double dealings of governments, there was also a number of plots where you'd have the same goal as the people on Babylon 5. So like for a brief amount of time, you'd team up.
You're on the same side to a point. Yeah.
But you, of course, what's coming is that you have your own agenda and you're going to part ways. But there's so many twists and turns in that character. And there's one, and just the way that you would deliver these lines, I'm going to gush a little bit, you're just going to have to take it. But there's I just remember this scene where you're there to help them with the situation. You're going to help them with the situation, but they don't really realize it. And you come on board and you goes, I'm here to save your butts. How about a little gratitude? And, man, it's just poetry.
And it's also just, it's so frightening, the idea of telepaths and what the things they can plant in you and repress things and you even know about, like what you end up doing to Garibaldi and the way you use him, and it's just...
That was a good... I like that.
Great.
Yeah, that's a nice arc. Yeah.
And, it's really good. And no, I'm guessing it must have been really refreshing and really invigorating to do that kind of a character, though, as opposed to Chekhov, which is, like you said, kind of polar opposite.
Yeah. Well, it's that. The thing that was most gratifying was that it was a flesh and blood character.
Right.
And that when he appeared, he made a difference. He was he was part of what the focus was about. He was pivotal to the plot.
Right.
And that was a whole new feeling for me,
Right.
And it was also, of course it was 30 years, well, almost 30 years later, but the caste system had changed.
Yes.
Television had changed. Everybody who had a regular role on a television series appeared as a separate card credit at the beginning of the show.
Right. It was more an ensemble kind of...
Yeah, the Hill Street Blues kind of time.
Everything had changed. So and that's the way everybody treated each other.
Mm-hmm.
Bruce Boxleitner and Jerry and everybody else, they all treated each other equally.
Right.
And that's the way they treated me. Of course, I did have the
pedigree.
The pedigree of having been on Star Trek.
Sure.
But they treated everybody that way. The guest stars, everybody, and Bruce and Jerry and Claudia and all those folks, they set the tone. And that's the way they dealt with the folks. And so it really was a family feeling.
That's awesome.
And I felt like I really belonged here, even though I only did 12 of what did they did.
It was like 5 seasons. I think.
So like
very dense
1836 or something, like 90 episodes or something.
Yeah.
And it made me feel a lot better. It's curious. It made me feel a lot better about going to Star Trek conventions because now I can say, here, I have done something worth your approval.
And still in the science fiction genre.
Yeah, whatever. It could have been anything. But it was the fact that I felt now that I wasn't masquerading anymore as an actor, that I had actually had something out there that proved that I was a competent performer.
Of course.
And I can only imagine that you were, after doing Babylon 5 or during doing Babylon 5, when you would go to these conventions, you were very well received.
Because that
being
became
recognized for best.
Well-loved show.
I was. It was really very nice. There was a point when people were buying almost as many Bester photos as they were Star Trek
That's
photos.
awesome.
That's great. That's great.
I had read about this. I want you to tell me about the clenched left hand.
Yeah.
Which I heard was your idea.
Yeah.
And it's basically in the series, Bester's left hand is always in a fist.
Right.
And it's never really explained. And I heard this was your idea behind this. And tell us about that.
Well, yeah, it's true. And Joe never questioned me. J. Michael never questioned me. I used it as an acting device. Bruce Boxleitner and Jerry
Doyle.
Jerry Doyle are both about 6'2", or were. Jerry has passed.
Yes.
These were going to be the people I was in conflict with. I had to feel that I was at least their equal. And Walter Koenig had to feel that way. Mm-hmm. You're looking up at a guy who's 6'2" and you're half a foot shorter, more than half a foot shorter. You got to find a way not to let that influence you, not let that affect you. And my sense was that if I had a disabled hand that I couldn't use, and I had still risen to the position that I had, and I was in command, then I must be a pretty good badass.
Yeah.
And it was a way of convincing myself that I could put Walter Koenig aside and play this character who might indeed have some issues. but he did not let them interfere with.
Right. He was strong enough
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
matter.
So that's what that was about.
That's really awesome. Which I would point out, the one disappointing thing about your action figure is that the hand does not clench.
Oh.
But no, but that's great. That's a
I
great
didn't
little.
know something. I never noticed that.
I'll have to customize that.
Yeah, you just heat it over a stove.
yeah. But I know it's true. Like I said, it's just I love that character.
Yeah, it's a great character.
Really great.
And again, aside from the hand, there's so much you do with your eyes, and there is a very controlled strength in that character
Yeah.
at all times. And that also lends well to when you break, when you're having an emotional moment about your love who's
Right.
been turned into this like cyber creature.
With the shadows.
Yeah,
Right.
it's very powerful.
Yeah, really good stuff.
So you did Babylon 5, you done Star Trek, and then there's this other Star Trek thing that kind of comes later on that you kind of talked about briefly. Can you tell us a little bit about the Star Trek Renegades?
Well,
Because it's not Paramount.
no, it's
produced.
not. No, it's a low budget production, and it was a Kickstarter kind of thing where they raised money from fans. They did the first one, in which I had a prominent role, but I didn't find it totally satisfying. I felt the story was not as focused as it should be.
Right.
It was hard to know who the good guys were and who the bad guys were. As a consequence, the conflict was kind of meandering.
Right.
It didn't feel like it was an easy picture, easy story to become absorbed in. You sort of enjoyed the fact that we had so many different aliens, and that the CGI that we did use was pretty impressive. But
Yeah.
I felt that story-wise, it could be better.
But it takes place. Chekhov is
An admiral.
Yeah, he's an admiral now. He's very old, and he's kind of like running things in a way. But
Right.
he's concerned about there's something going on within the Federation.
Right, except that now it's called the Confederation because we got one day into shooting and on the second one, and we got the word from CBS that no one could do any more Star Trek stuff. That was more than like 15 minutes long and cost $15,000.
Oh,
Yeah, and you could not use any licensed material.
okay.
So fortunately, we were only one day into it. so we took off the horns on the blue
Andorians.
Andorian.
and I
Took the ears off of Tuvok, right?
yes, exactly.
Yeah, Tim Russ.
Yeah.
And we had to redesign all of the ships,
Okay.
Wow.
and which are really pretty impressive. And I became the admiral instead of Admiral Chekhov. But
You're still Pavel.
yeah, we're not going to fool anybody.
No.
Yeah.
And I was a little bit involved in the writing, not in terms of the overall plot, but in terms of the character. And it was my idea to have the flashbacks and bring my grandson and my grandnephew into it. My grandnephew. Well, I'm not going to tell you any more about that. And then I suggested the music that we should have near the end of the film, Russian music, which I think is. I just heard it the other day, and it's very effective. It's very effective, and all the actors are terrific. I
Yes.
mean, they're all actors that you know from different
Different Trek projects.
different Star Trek series, but they're all terrific. And Robert and Terry and
Robert Beltran.
yeah,
And you got like Sean Young in there and
yeah,
Herb Jefferson Jr.
Gary Graham
he's good. Gary Graham
Yeah.
is very good. But
and
then-
Edward Furlong.
yeah,
Edward
that-
Furlong's in there?
He was in
Yeah.
the first one.
Yeah.
He was in the first one. Well, we have some new people that you'll recognize in the second one, and I think it's going to be a good picture. I think it's going to be a picture that has really sound structure and satisfying, and you can identify with the characters, and it'll keep you involved. So, and that's, as I say, we're really in the home stretch. I can see the tape, the finish line. So.
So hopefully then there'll be more than in this series. Then hopefully if these.
Well,
two-
we haven't discussed it, to my knowledge. And maybe the other folks have, because I haven't been that close to the everyday production. But it's no longer Star Trek.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're not limited
Right.
Yeah.
on the
Right,
way
true.
it could be presented. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Out on YouTube, you've got there is a Star Trek Renegades, but this new one is just Renegades.
It's called Renegades.
Renegades.
Renegades Requiem.
Requiem.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
And then before that was Of Gods and Men.
Of Gods and
which
Men.
is the same production people. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I enjoyed as well. And that was one too that had you playing. You got to stretch a little bit and play.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah.
That's why I did it. Because
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, because I got to play, this revolutionary, very passionate, over the top kind of guy, very hostile.
It's like an alternate timeline where things don't go quite as well
Right.
for Chekhov.
Right.
So it's like you're a hardened.
Yeah. So that's why I keep playing this character, because I'm finding things,
Yeah.
Sure,
And
sure.
I finally I say I feel satisfied with Renegade Requiem. I feel that okay. Now I can, I may be forced to. God, I'm almost 81, but I feel I can put it away, and whatever there is left for me to do, I'm prepared to do it. Which reminds me, if we have another minute or two, I am involved in it's a group that are doing, they want to do a project called The Circuit. The Circuit will be 10 stories, 10 different writers, 10 different directors, and actors from a repertoire working in all 10 of the episodes. And they're soliciting ideas, concepts, storylines from fans,
Oh, wow.
which they can reshape or rework into actual producible short films.
Oh.
And they're holding their fundraiser now, and they have been for, I don't know, a few weeks. And I think they have enough to do the first episode.
Wow.
Awesome.
And this Kickstarter?
It's a Kickstarter
Okay.
project, yeah. But it's called The Circuit, and a lot of the actors from Renegades are in it, plus other actors that you know. My mind is going, so I can't remember their names at the moment, but believe me, they're all significant people that you've
That's
heard of.
awesome.
Yeah, and so and the episode that was written for me by one of these writers, not one of the fans, but one of the professional writers, may be the episode we kicked this off with. It's not entirely sure, but it may be. And again, I've suggested to the writer some ideas that I think would make it more, a little bit more potent, a little bit more forceful. And he seems to be on board with it. So we'll see. We'll see if that happens. But I feel positive about it. Something in the near future that I can look forward to and feel like I still have something to contribute.
Sure. There's more to Chekhov.
There's more to Koenig.
So something
Yes,
to look
Koenig,
for,
yeah.
something to look
Including
forward to.
when you come back to Monster Party.
Yeah.
Which is tomorrow.
As he grabs his coat.
Well, Walter, this has been just great.
gosh.
Yeah.
Thank you so
so
much.
much.
Thanks for making the
awesome.
time.
Absolutely. No, great fun. Talking about myself with
Come
me
on.
more blissful.
Right? Yeah, yeah.
This is awesome.
Now, okay,
really.
so we understand there's that thing. Is there anything else you've got going on?
That you want to plug, or
Is there a
yeah.
graphic novel or something that you...
Well, I have a graphic novel that's out, and it's really a kind of interesting story. And the artist was brilliant, but I reread it, and it's
Don't do that.
It's a little opaque. It would. I think it's all there, but would have to be reworked to make it more accessible to fandom. So I'm not really juggling that idea too seriously, but I'm thinking that it is a good. It's about the origin of vampires.
Great.
Yeah. So I think it could be a good graphic novel, and then maybe go on to something else, but it has to be redone a little bit.
All right.
Well,
okay. Well,
we will look
to it.
forward to that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, once again,
Yes.
this
Thank you
was
so much.
Amazing.
a delight, a dream come
you.
true.
It really is.
I'm glad I got down to the truth of
Yeah.
Chekhov. I really am.
And I think I'm going to look at the pictures that we took of your Chekhov figure kissing your ring.
Yes.
Again and again and
Yes.
again.
Yes.
Just during those moments of sadness
Despair.
and confusion.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm-
Absolutely.
I'm-
Show me the way.
And I'm sure the
Absolutely.
listeners can check this out on Facebook because I'm sure the picture will be up there. The little
Yes, it will.
figure
Of course it
kissing
will.
Walter's ring,
Of course.
as I'm sure we all will after this is over.
better than Xantax.
Time for listener shout out.
Shout it out!
Cool. We've actually got several shout-outs
Oh my
tonight.
gosh, how many? Like
Oh,
45?
man.
First one goes out to Gary Dietz in Lawrenceburg, Indiana,
Gary Dietz.
who
Gary
just recently
Dietz.
purchased the Monster Party cap.
All
Hey,
right.
thanks, Gary.
Thank you, Gary. Wear it with pride. And let's remind our listeners, you can buy the Monster Party cap at our eBay store, which is Monster Party Store. Easy to remember.
Easy to remember.
Also, a shout out to Carrie Christopher.
Carrie Christopher.
Carrie's a big fan of Creature from the Black Lagoon and also
isn't?
Godzilla and other Japanese and J-horror titles.
Hi.
Wow.
I love this person.
Carrie reached out to us because you recently was visiting Japan with his family and asked
my
for
God.
some recommendations on where to visit.
I think I gave him like 100 of them,
You
right?
did,
Oh,
Matt.
yeah,
yes,
yeah.
you
Wow.
did on Facebook. So, Carrie, I hope you had a great time, and we look forward to seeing your pictures.
Oh, please send us some
Yeah,
pictures.
please.
Say,
Yes.
I went here because Monster Party told me to.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yes.
we every time we leave Japan, we jones for it. So
Yeah,
we
yeah,
want to live
sure.
vicariously through you.
Yes.
Carrie, we hope that every place you visited, you mentioned that Monster Party sent you because they'll greet you with a bewildered look. Also, a quick shout out to listener Tina Burgess, who
Tina Burgess.
who gave me a friendly shout out on Facebook for my Stephen King dollar, baby. So, Tina, thank you for that. Appreciate that. But
Thanks, Tina.
I also want to read a recent review that we got on iTunes
We got a review?
by some listener named G. Mr. Peabody,
Gee, Mr.
Oh, that
Peabody.
guy.
Gee, Mr. Peabody.
who I can only assume is named Sherman. And he says,
What does he say, James?
I have listened to every episode of Monster Party.
Awesome.
Hearing a group of well-versed and funny nerds talk about all the horror, sci-fi, and fantasy that I love is a dream come true for someone who grew up with no other nerds around who are also into this stuff.
Oh, that's great.
He says, the X factor of the podcast comes from the interaction of the hosts.
Oh.
3 of the hosts are funny, sarcastic fellows, as are their guests.
3?
The fourth host is funny too, of course, but does not seem to understand or recognize sarcasm as a concept
Much like Spock doesn't recognize humor.
and gets annoyed when the others joke for too long.
I don't know who that is.
In a comedy podcast. The interaction between these sensibilities is at its best hilarious and at its worst genuinely fascinating. You really have to hear it for yourself.
right.
Yeah.
So, G. Mr. Peabody, we don't know your real name, but thank you for the review because we appreciate it and we've certainly
That's
gotten
awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
and
Thank you.
thanks,
really well
thanks-
said.
Thanks for being.
Yeah.
Oh, shut up.
Insightful.
I was gonna say, Mr. G. Peabody, thank you for being honest. You know, that's that. No, I want you. I want people to let us. You know, let us
course,
know. And
yeah.
if that's how you see it, well, okay.
Well, he loves it. It's a great review. It's glowing.
Well, I'm
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, the 3 is really funny.
Yeah.
So this
Genuinely
4th
fascinating
guy.
at worst.
Well, we don't know who he's talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, you're right.
That's right.
You're
yeah.
right.
See?
Could be any
Okay.
of us.
But it's Larry. Anyway,
Let's also remind our listeners that you can find us on Facebook at Monster Party TV. Also, YouTube. We have a YouTube channel. Check that out. It's also called Monster Party TV. Our Twitter handle is at Monster Party HQ. Instagram is also Monster Party HQ. And please take a moment and write a review on iTunes. We would love to hear from you. And who knows, we might read your review on the air.
yeah.
We might. And a special thanks to a few stores that are big supporters of Monster Party. And the first one is Creature Features, located at 2904 West Magnolia Boulevard in Burbank, California. These guys are great. Taylor, Eric, and Matt have a great store. It's fantastic. They also have an eBay store. You can check it out. The seller ID is C-Features. Or you can just click on their links at the bottom of the creaturefeatures.com website. And what's really cool is if you go to the website, you go down to the bottom, there's a little green box that says email newsletter. And if you get that, it tells all about each of our episodes, which is really,
Oh,
really
yes,
cool.
true.
Yeah.
And all their events going on.
Yeah, and all
And they
events.
have great events. And if you're ever in the Los Angeles area and you can make one of their art shows, it's really worth it. Every single one of them is fantastic.
And then also I want to give a special little shout out to Time Tunnel Toys, located at 1583 Meridian Avenue in San Jose, California. Joe has and Sharon, they have a wonderful store full of antique, vintage toys. It's just a fantastic place, and you can check them out on the internet if you type in Time Tunnel Toys.
I wanna go to this
It's
place.
such a great place, and every 6 months or so, 4 months, 6 months, they organize a fantastic antique toy show, it's just growing
all
every.
go.
Yeah, we definitely should go. And they actually have guests there. I mean, they had Sam Jones who played Flash Gordon,
right?
And they've had a bunch of other people. They do wonderful work. So great job, Time Tunnel
Right.
Toys.
Cool.
Yay!
Vintage toys are cool.
On that note, I am Matt Weinhold.
I am Shawn Sheridan.
I'm Larry Stroth.
And I'm James Gonis.
Keep America strong.
Watch anything with Walter Koenig in it. Shall we all try the Chekhov scream?
Admiral, they put creatures in our bodies.
Okay, that's pretty good.
Nuclear vessels.
Not so good.
Okay.
All right. How's everyone's levels?
Test,
Level.
test.
You know what?
2, 3, 4.
One little thing, you kind of got to hug this for it to...
Like your Elvis.
Yeah. And also, if you need a pillow or anything to make
No,
this more comfortable.
No.
And Walter, you could also hold it if you want to do
Yeah,
that.
whatever you want to do.
I
But
can hold it?
You can, like this.
Child, I wasn't allowed.
get a good grip on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It works better when you... right around the tip.
I just want to say one thing, and that is
Not just one thing.
No, just one thing. So, do I not get headphones?
No.
No. I actually don't have.
where your headphones are.
Right here.
No, those are.
No, those
So
are.
those should be yours, and
Yeah.
those should be yours.
So James took my headphones.
James.
Oh,
Does our
I
guest
see.
not have headphones?
He has headphones right here.
Walter, would you like to
there's
use
some
headphones?
green
You don't
ones,
have to if
right?
you don't
I
want to.
have them in my.
There you go.
You don't have to wear them, but
Okay.
you know, if
You can hear yourself well.
comfortable.
What? Yes.
Those are nice, huh? Yeah.
Hey,
Fit
hey.
snug. I
Hey.
put a little lotion around there. It's nice. It's okay.
Hey, you sound great.
I think we all
I think
sound
all sound
terrific.
pretty good. Yes.
All
yes.
right.
Why don't we start this?
Who's ready? Who's ready?
Let's start it. Let's get started right now.
Voiceovers.
He does
You do
characters.
voiceovers too, right?
I do. Oh, well, actually, I have been doing a voiceover. we can talk about.
We're gonna get there.
We're gonna get there.
We're gonna get there.
Okay. All right. So what I do is I start with kind of a standard like horror movie host intro. I introduce these guys. We introduce you.
You introduce us,
well, we introduce each other.
and then we say what the
And then we say what the topic is, and the guest. You are the topic, so it should we shave a minute off right there. So,
So you don't have a limit. You have to.
no. It's
Free
totally
form.
free
This is
form.
like-
when we
Yeah.
had
it's a
David
big nerd loving.
when we had David Scow here to talk about Twilight Zone versus Outer Limits. 3 hours, and you know I'm not scared. No, we go like
however
90
long you
minutes.
feel
however
Yeah,
long
whatever-
however
whenever
long
you wanna wrap
but
this
David,
up, we'll
there
do
was
it, yeah.
so much.
We'll start
Did you
inflating.
divide it up into two parts?
No.
No.
It was a verse. It was a verses, and it was great because our listeners. Twilight Zone is really well known. It's more well known than Outer Limits. And David brought he'd written these books, beautiful books, which we had. We had the figures, and so we talked a lot about Outer Limits, comparing it to Twilight Zone. And he brought up some great things about Twilight Zone. How Twilight Zone is ordinary people in extraordinary circumstances, whereas Outer Limits are extraordinary people in ordinary circumstances.
Wow.
Okay.
That was David
Well,
Scow.
that's our show.
No, it's a great show, you know. And people, what they do is, like my sister, she listens to us when she's cleaning. Okay, I've got a friend at Creature Features who says, look, he'll listen to us like 20 minutes at a time as he's driving back and forth to work, you know. And so, but we have a really great following.
So how does this work? At this point in my life, I should know more about podcasts.
No.
You can tune them in anytime you want?
Yep.
Is that the way it works?
Yep.
Yeah.
On your phone or on a laptop.
Do you have a subscription list?
People can we're on iTunes, so you can go to iTunes and you could
You can see
subscribe to
all
our
the- You
show.
can see all the episodes.
But do you subscribe for a fee?
Oh no, this is free.
all
This is
free.
completely
Because
free.
Jimmy has a fee.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
he's,
yeah.
you know.
Well, he's
big time.
Big time. Look,
Yeah.
I hope to get there one day. And
We're
you know
working
what?
on
We're
it.
working
I
on
think
it.
with this one,
This'll be
we're
it.
going to start
This'll be
charging.
it.
Yes, this is it. This is a
I'm
turning
Walter
point.
Koenig, and welcome to the charitable fundraising premiere
Of
Monster Party.
Here we go.
You know, the tentative read of our title, I think that's what puts it over.
do the scream and do it again. No, that was funny, Sean. I like that.
Somebody else should do it because
Can't you,
say
can't
it
you
better.
pump up the volume?
No, yeah, but that's fine. Do it again.
Let's try it again.
No, no,
it might be
is it-
fine. It's hard for me to tell.
Yeah.
You know.
Now, what is it? Do you just say nuclear vessels?
Nuclear vessels. Is that what he says?
Oh, it says, "Can you tell me where you can find
no,
nuclear?"
No,
Too
no,
much.
just
No,
do-
too much.
no, no,
Nuclear
no.
vessel.
Nuclear
Okay.
vessel.
You're right.
It's not a
because-
soliloquy
No,
here.
no,
Let's
because
just-
I'm not the funny one. So yeah, don't listen.
You
to
are
me.
not the funny
That's
one,
right.
correct.
No, and you know what? I never claimed that. I never claimed.
Captain,
That's true.
No. What did you just do? What did you say?
they put creatures in our bodies.
You do better.
Ooh.
You should do nuclear vessels.
No,
You do it
no.
better.
They put creatures in our bodies. That's good.
Oh,
It's not as long.
it's too long.
Yeah, that's right.
Again, I'm not the funny one. So whatever you guys want, I don't care.
I'm glad you're letting it go.
I am letting it go. I'm letting it go.
First of all, he didn't say that you weren't a funny one. He didn't say that. You know that, right? Should he read the thing again to prove it to you?
No. I'm not. I'm
No,
not,
he
I'm not.
What does he
interested.
say?
No,
exactly.
I don't care.
No, I want to know.
Okay.
I have listened to every episode of Monster Party.
Every episode.
Hearing-
Every single one.
Hearing a group of well-versed and funny nerds
That's all of us.
That's
all a group.
all of
Okay.
us.
All right.
talk about all the horror, sci-fi, and fantasy that I love as a dream come true for someone who grew up with no other nerds
A dream
around,
come true.
who are also
Yeah.
into this stuff.
So far, so good.
The X Factor comes
X.
from the interaction of the hosts.
X Factor is a big show.
Three
Yeah.
of the hosts are funny, sarcastic fellows, as are their guests. The fourth host is funny
The
too.
fourth? Host is funny too.
And there we
Isn't there a
Man up.
but? Isn't there a but?
yes, but
Aha!
we
There's
can-
there's a but.
But we can just
There is a
stop.
no
But
no
we- the
no
point is-
no. Read the but. Read the but. But
but does not seem to understand or recognize sarcasm as a concept and gets annoyed when the others joke for too long.
well, okay. Let me
Continue.
In a comedy podcast,
That's my
Okay,
favorite
let me
part.
just say, let me just say for Mr. G Peabody, you know, I just want to make sure that listeners get the true story.
See,
I
you know
just-
what's
and-
great?
and-
What's
and-
great is this is proving his point. This is proving his point.
No, it's
Because
like,
that is funny.
When people-
Your
no.
inability to understand sarcasm.
No. I can understand sarcasm. No,
Can you?
yes, I can. Yes, I can. Listen, there are younger listeners out there that when they hear that, they go, "Oh,
So
really?
young people have no concept of sarcasm.
No. When they
Yeah,
hear,
maybe an infant, but they don't understand anything.
Okay. I'm just saying that if you say something that is false, and unless you say I'm just kidding or whatever, you know, then people might have the illusion that that's true.
Might. But then now you're erasing like a lot of comedy over the years that's based on
Yes.
sarcasm because
On
the minute
tone
you
of
start,
voice.
have you ever heard that the minute you start explaining a joke, then it's no longer funny? Never heard this. You come from the school of let's explain it to death. So
No,
wring out as much humor
See,
as
you
we
say
can.
explain it to death. I want to inform. That's all.
But
That's
most people.
most people. You just
Do
assuming.
you understand? Like even the inflection of someone saying something in a
Sure.
sarcastic way
Of course.
hints that this may be sarcastic. See, that's the part I think you're not picking up.
No. I get it.
But don't change it at all. Oh no, Mr. GP
Okay,
Peabody or what was his
yeah.
name?
Yeah, Mr. G Peabody.
G. Mr. Peabody.
G. Mr. Peabody
Peabody.
understands what we're saying here, and
Yes.
that is, don't change a thing. We love it,
Right.
Yes.
Exactly.
yes.
and
He
yes.
loves it. He's not complaining.
right.
Yeah.
I think there's a little complaining in
No,
there.
No, I don't think you. No, what he's saying, it's a whole like no matter what, it's a fascinating.
Yes.
Well,
exhibition.
I am going to say this. I want to acknowledge Mr. G Peabody.
Yeah.
G. Mr. Peabody.
G. Mr. Peabody,
Mr.
because he was kind enough to send a review, or and just
Sent a review.
He sent a, and
Yeah.
it's like
He took
to our
the time
listeners,
to- right.
to let us know. I mean, I know that there are because we know that there are thousands of listeners. We do have a lot of listeners, and it's like guys, go ahead and send something in. Let us know, just even if it's a brief thing where you say, I liked the show or didn't like the show, or this was informative. It doesn't all have to be positive, like Mr. Peabody G guy. You know, it's, if it's
not positive.
It's very positive.
Well, I'm just okay. Well, it was informative,
Wow.
and I learned from it.
Wow.
Wow.
It's a good thing we settled that.
This is terrific.
Yeah, it's great.